What's up, everybody? Thank you for being here with us with LTMB Live. This is Let the Madness headquarters, or Let the Madness Begin headquarters. I'm out of sorts right now. But anyway, this is the show, LTMB Live. I'm Will Gaillard.
And I'm Mike White.
What's going on, everybody?
Yo, man.
A lot to talk about today, of course.
A lot to talk about, man.
A lot to talk about. One incident, of course, is dominating news coverage, and
happened on Valentine's Day,
and that will be hard to be forgotten. That will be very hard to be forgotten. But yeah, we'll have a lot to say about that and some other issues. Gonna let some people fill in here, make sure the audio and the video is working properly. What's going on, Jay? Grandma Christine, nothing that it seems.
Grandma Christine got you, Jay. You said first. Grandma Christine got you, dude.
All right, let's bring Facebook in here. Yeah. All right, what's going on, Facebook? This is LTMB Live with Will Gaillard.
And I'm Mike White.
What's going on, everybody?
This is the post-Valentine's Day show.
Yeah, man.
No love lost. Yeah, man, we're gonna have to. We don't got as many topics to talk about.
No, we don't.
I think we're gonna talk about a few topics.
Like, yeah, extensively.
You know what I'm saying?
Of course, in the main topic, and we're gonna, kind of see what you feel about it too. So we encourage people to call in, and let your voice be heard, because this is an issue that is debated, so often, and a lot of people have different ideas. A lot of people feel very strongly in certain ways about it. So we do want to hear what you have to say, about this issue, about guns, about shootings, mass shootings, and things like that.
And maybe what can be done about them.
Yeah.
Done about them, or, is it really just about guns? Because I think sometimes the conversation gets steered towards guns solely, you know what I'm saying, as if that's the dysfunction in of itself, you know what I'm saying.
Right, true. And then people go different ways with it.
Yes, those different ways.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about all of that. So so I think everything is working well. We hope that you can hear us, hope that you can see us. So all right, let's just begin. So yesterday on Valentine's Day, in Florida, in Parkland, Florida, at Marjorie Stoneman High School, there was a school shooting, a mass shooting, and it killed at least 17 people, with I believe 14 injured was the last report that I saw. The suspected gunman is named Nicholas Cruz, 19. He was a former student, had been kicked out of the school sometime previously because of his behavior, I believe because of fighting. But apparently he got into the school sometime during the day. I believe I heard it was fourth period, I believe. He got into the school armed with the AR-15 style weapon, and had a lot of different ammunition. He had a number of different magazines, and proceeded to shoot the school up. And like I said, at least 17 people died in this tragedy. So of course, this is another event, another mass shooting. Whenever we talk about this, we always say it's gonna happen again.
We just don't know when.
Exactly. The only thing that we don't know is when it's gonna happen, but we know it is for certain going to happen again. And being that the weapon of choice in this crime was an AR-15 style weapon, seems to be that in all mass shootings, they are the semi-automatic weapon type of firearms.
Cynthia says she's a bit cynical because after the shooting in Newtown 5 years ago, Congress did nothing. Honestly, Cynthia, I don't think that's cynical at all. That's actually the reality. They did nothing, and it doesn't seem as if Congress is ever looking to do anything because of the industry that that certain Congress people get contributions from, and everybody knows who the industry is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The gun lobby.
NRA.
I mean, like I think the top Congress person that gets the most money from the NRA is John McCain. I think it's as of last year it was like $8 million that he received from the NRA. Marco Rubio is like in the $3 or $4 million range, but they're mostly Republicans. Like Jody Ernst of Iowa,
Right.
she is like in that $4-5 million range. There's 2 reps from North Carolina in the top 10. North Carolina in the top 10 who get contributions from the NRA. They're like in the $7 to $8 million range.
And we can't forget President Trump, who has received, I believe it's over $20 million from the NRA just for his campaign to become president. So we know that it's a large industry. We know that it has a lot of influence, and we have talked about that so many different times, especially after the Las Vegas tragedy because of the bump stock situation. Bump stocks being the accessory that is affixed to semi-automatic weapons and allows a semi-automatic weapon to fire automatic gunfire. Some of these politicians were saying that they did not even know what a bump stock was. They were not familiar with the term or the accessory at all. But upon hearing about this, they said that they might be able to back a ban of these accessories because, of course, why would you support automatic gunfire?
Because automatic rifles they're already illegal. So why would you, not want to support a bill that, or any kind of legislation that bans an accessory that makes a gun automatic weapon?
But then the NRA spoke, and seems to be after that, it got shut down. You never heard from these politicians again saying that they would, in fact, back a ban of these accessories. So, again, we understand how influential this gun lobby is and what it can shut down.
And what'd your boy Paul Ryan say?
Yeah, Paul Ryan at the time said that after the NRA spoke, he said that he no longer believed that this was something that should be a legislative fix. It should be a regulatory fix. That's right.
Well, he is in the perfect position. He is in the perfect position to, I guess, present some sort of regulatory fix. Right?
He is, but we know they don't act. So anyway, dealing with this particular crime, this guy seems to have had I guess an alarming past. Seems to be. I've seen reports about what's being called a very like I said, alarming digital footprint. Very dangerous. He's left apparently he's left certain comments on a variety of different platforms like Twitter and YouTube, Instagram. There were some YouTube comments that he made saying things like he was gonna shoot Antifa members, shoot police officers, and then talked about a school shooting as well, like he was gonna perform a school shooting. On one video, he said that this was a quote: "I'm going to be a professional school shooter." So the guy that actually uploaded a video, that Nicholas Cruz, that's his name. I don't know if I said his name, but anyway, Nicholas Cruz. The guy's the guy's YouTube video that he left a comment on, he actually alerted the FBI about that comment. And he actually spoke to 2 FBI agents. They came and spoke to him, and he never heard anything back from them. This was, I believe, back in last year. I believe this was like September. Yeah, September of last year. And he never heard anything from them again until yesterday after the shooting, and they spoke with them again. But you know, on Instagram,
yeah, I saw some posts on Instagram, and he's very like he said he has some very sarcastically bigoted things to say about Muslims,
right,
and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I mean, honestly, you know, it's easy to kind of separate him out from the herd because he committed a heinous act. Yes. But if you look at a lot of kind of what drove, I guess, his beliefs, and a lot of what, I guess, like how he channeled his anger and his I guess his worldview, it's actually pretty typical. He's, you know what I'm saying? Like I've seen worse and I've heard worse, but I've heard the same too coming out of the mouths of, let's say, the average American citizen, or some American citizens. You see it all the time. This is actually not new. So I think that sometimes when individuals commit acts like this, there tends to be, I guess, an exaggeration of their beliefs and what they stood for, because it kind of makes people feel like detached from, you know, people like this.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they attribute his actions to other things. You know what I'm saying? Like the Trump put out a tweet saying something about there were signs that he was mentally ill. There was signs something should have been done. There was signs that he had like a mental disability or something. He was mentally ill or something of that nature. I can't remember the exact tweet, but like just on that tweet alone, that's kind of ironic because last year, I think it was February, he signed into legislation that rolled back Obama era policies that made it harder for people with mental illnesses to get guns.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's what he did. So I thought that tweet, in a vacuum, just talking about that tweet, that's ironic. But I just don't like the conversation always going to mental illness as if it's the mental illness itself that kind of drove him. We saw what drove him, and he made all those things very public.
Trump, for his part, again, when you were listing the politicians that have raked in millions of dollars from the NRA, Trump being one of them, of course he's not going to talk about gun control or measures that Congress needs to take as it relates to actually doing something to curb all this violence caused by, well, I won't even say caused by, violence that is, I guess, achieved through these AR-15 style weapons. Okay. Now, Trump, when he spoke about this tragedy, he said that he was going to make it his priority to make schools safe. Now, he didn't say one word about how that was going to happen. I think it's kind of interesting that he would say that because, you know, we just talked about recently about his budget proposal.
Right.
And how he wants to strip away billions of dollars away from the education department. Now, I don't think if you want to make schools safer,
he's going to have to spend some type of money in some way.
You would have to spend some money to do that. And maybe that could be achieved in a different number of ways. But taking money away sure isn't going to get it done.
Exactly, because I mean, first of all, it doesn't make any sense because if you're going to take money away from education, like that pretty much means that teachers and schools are not going to have the resources they need, like just to facilitate like the curriculum as it is right now.
Right.
So, like, it's highly unlikely that there's going to be any money devoted towards making schools safer in regards
security
to this.
Or anything.
Yeah, because
like
I'm saying it would have to be security.
Yeah.
You would have to be some sort of training. Like it's very empty because there's no suggestions behind it.
If it's able to happen right now, then you would have to provide more money for security, for planning.
But schools,
but you're stripping money away, or you want to.
But again, schools aren't separate from society, so you can't sit there and say you want to make schools safer and think that somehow this issue is in a vacuum. Yes, we have mass shootings, like a lot in schools, but the mass shooting was, remember the Orlando, the club?
Yes.
Remember the movie theater?
Yep. Look, man.
You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't happen in a vacuum. So it has to be an issue that you have to deal with universally, and not just say we got to protect the schools.
Yeah,
it
we
doesn't
got to make schools
sense.
safe. In the past 5 months, within the past 5 months, this country has sustained 3 of the 10 worst mass shootings ever. In the past 5 months, within the past 5 months, we went through October 1st, Las Vegas, 58 people died. We went through Sutherland Springs in Texas, where it was 25 people that died, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have, on February 14th, just yesterday, we have 7 people, at least 7 people, as of right now, that have died. So, again, like you're saying, this isn't something that you can just say, I'm going to focus squarely on schools and make schools safer,
and then
society
or focus on squarely on the broad issue of like mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because to me, hate is a mental illness. It's people's belief systems and attitudes towards certain individuals. To me, that's a mental illness. That's a mental deficiency,
right.
Or maybe people's unconditional gun fetish. That's a mental illness,
right?
To where no matter what happens, there should be no conversation that takes place about even sensible regulation,
right?
And
any kind of provision, if it deals with guns, then
to be honest, like I don't think it's twofold. I think it's like multi-pronged. But like we talk about the influence the NRA has.
Mm-hmm.
Over legislation getting written or not getting written. But I think what also stagnates the conversation is this kind of fear-based kind of angle that people use as far as like false flags.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that does more to stagnate the conversation than, I wouldn't say more, but it does just as much to stagnate the conversation as the NRA influencing Congress. Because what happens when people are so knee-jerkingly, anxious to, I guess, list this as some sort of false flag or any event as a false flag, what you do is you create this fear within people that, encourages them not to want to continue the conversation or even start a conversation in regards to like sensible guns legislation, because it's always, oh, this is a false flag to take away your rights.
Yeah.
And I'm just but
if you say that, then you can't be led to a place where anything can be done, because it doesn't justify that.
Because you're already in like this fixed extreme position that this event is going to lead to some rights being taken away, which to me is amazing because they already are. They're already going down that path, and they don't need events for that to take place. Right. I'm like, look at the tax bill, or I mean, you can look at net neutrality. You can look at surveillance. You can look at all these different things, and it doesn't look like they've used any of these events.
Nobody is in the streets with pitchforks.
Nobody.
Nobody's in the streets with their weapons either, because the whole reason why people, cling to the Second Amendment so fervently is they're saying that we need these guns just in case. That's why the Second Amendment is in there. We need them just in case the government acts up.
So wait a second. So now that the EPA is rolling back environmental protections, is anybody in the streets with their guns now because of that?
Nobody storming the White House. Nobody storming the Capitol building.
Or when the the Consumer Protection Bureau is being pretty much made to where they have no teeth into protecting consumers. Where is everybody with their guns to try to protect that? Where is everybody with their guns trying to protect net neutrality? You know what I'm saying? So if guns are necessary to ensure our freedom, where is everybody with their guns when all this stuff is going down, when all this legislation is taking place?
Really, they're comfortable.
Full of shit.
They're comfortable with all of those things being taken away. What they're not comfortable with is what they say they need to combat the government, just in case they take away stuff. There's no logic behind it. Like, again, it's just an excuse.
I think people are full of shit because their money, or I would say their guns are where their mouth is. They would be in the streets with their guns.
They would be forming
well-regulated
militias.
Exactly. They'll be forming well-regulated militias and actually attacking the government for a kind of disenfranchising them, which is constantly happening and actually happened. Well, I can't say there's one instance, but like I think one of the main focal points is Citizens United. Didn't it kind of happen there? That kind of expedited the disenfranchisement there. Yes, people had things to say, but were people just out there with their guns demanding that decision be reversed? No. So people are full of shit when they say that guns are to ensure their rights remain solvent. They're full of shit.
So this is a little bit more about who Cruz is. So he's 19 years old, okay? And again, you know, he used to be a student at the school, but he was no longer school. Actually, his mother had died, I believe, because of flu complications back in November of last year. And after that, at some point, he moved in with the family, and that's where he has been ever since. They actually have a son that goes to that school. He was there at the time, but I don't believe he was hurt. Now, you know, through a lawyer, the family said that no, they didn't see anything. There were no signs. There was depression because of his mother, but they knew that he had that weapon. They told him that he had to keep it locked up inside, you know, inside a case in his room, which he did. But again, there was nothing for them to see that signaled that something like this was going to happen. So I believe he was working on his GED. You know, again, there was nothing that they saw. Now, there have been some reports that Nicholas Cruz is a Democrat, and there's also been reports that he pledges allegiance to ISIS. Again, like on that Instagram post, I believe you were talking about, he said something about Allah Akbar.
Oh yeah,
or something like that.
But he said Allah Akbar. Oops, I blew myself up.
Yes,
so basically
he was talking about
poking fun. He was being sarcastic about suicide bombers, Muslims.
He was actually talking about like going after terrorists and stuff like that. So yeah, he didn't pledge allegiance to ISIS. So that's one talking point a lot of people grasped onto to say, hey, you know, this is an actual terrorist, ISIS terrorist. No, there's no legitimacy to that. The other one about him being a Democrat is equally false, because the registered Democrat that is under the name of Nicholas Cruz, I believe he was actually born in let me see, let's see, I have it right here. I believe he was born in April of 1998, but this guy, Nicholas Cruz, was actually born in September of 1998. It's not the same guy. So there were a lot of people on social media saying, see, Democrats, see, the disgusting, dirty Democrats, so you need to take all guns away from Democrats. Stupid. Okay. So I thought it was interesting about the events of like how he may have acquired this weapon, because I've heard different things. One, he may have purchased it legally at a legal, at an official retailer, which in Florida, I believe you can be 18 to purchase. Actually, the federal law is that you have to be 18. You can be 18 to purchase AR-15 style weapon. You have to be 21 to purchase a handgun, which is completely stupid. Okay, but in Florida, I believe you can be 18 to purchase either one. Florida has the most lax one of the more lax laws in the country pertaining to guns. But like I said, I've heard that he purchased a weapon legally. I've also heard that he may have attained a weapon through a certain group that he was a part of, or allegedly he was a part of. So a leader of a white supremacist militia group called the Republic of Florida said that Nicholas Cruz was a member of this group.
See, I'm inclined to kind of like take that with a grain, like, you know, like a grain of salt. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like ISIS claiming responsibility for something.
Well,
I mean, because I mean,
this is a little bit more personal though.
Yeah, it's
like you have somebody actually talking to the Associated Press saying that, you know, I know this guy, he was actually a member of this organization. It's a little bit more than just a report from maybe overseas and ISIS yeah, he's one of us. It's a little bit more, I guess, tangible.
Like, yeah, it is tangible. And I just think it's a little bit knee jerky. And it's kind of a little bit assumptuous to say that this is a false flag. And we're 24 hours, I guess, post-event, post-shooting. I think that people have such a level of distrust for the government, or the shadow government, that they always attribute certain events to them. Like, oh, he was he was trained, or he was, you know, trained by the CIA to, you know, or he was helped by some government agency. And I think what it does is it acts as some sort of retreat. Yeah. It acts as a mental retreat, so we don't have to deal with, like, there could be possibly dysfunctions in our society that, like, I guess are present, that are definitely present, and that may influence people to commit acts of violence. Because if that is people's answer or people's response every single time, then we'd have to go back in history, right? And examine every single event and just say, oh, no one ever hated each other. No one ever, let's say, lynched 2,000 to 3,000 people during a certain era. That wasn't because of hate. Those were all false flags.
Yeah, the government
created a situation
to push some kind of
the bombing in Tulsa. That was a false flag,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Like,
the people that do that are disgusting individuals. People like Sane Progressive. Yep, I said her name. Yep, Sane Progressive. She's a disgusting individual. Because soon after, I mean, we're not a day. You know, I mean, like, now we're a day after into it. You know, this is 24 hours, but we don't have all the information. Like, there are certain people saying that there was a second shooter. No, there was actually 3 shooters, right? Now, there's no information to support that kind of narrative. There's absolutely no information. But people are actually online spreading this type of stuff, saying that you know, this is a false flag. Don't believe it, because, again, like you were saying, this event was just created so that they could take your guns. Well,
they haven't taken our guns in the last umpteen events. So
exactly. So if this is actually a false flag, and the FBI, the CIA, whoever is involved with this, they are doing a horrible job at it, because there have been so many mass shootings and nobody has even tried to get your guns. Nobody has tried to do so.
Maybe actually what's funny is maybe that's the actual conspiracy, to get people afraid that their guns are going to get taken away, and they ignore all the other things that disenfranchise them. Maybe that's the conspiracy.
Or check this out, right? Why isn't it an NRA conspiracy? Because what happens after these mass shootings happen? Gun sales go up.
Gun sales go up. So
why isn't it an NRA conspiracy? Exactly. Why aren't they the masterminds behind this? And be like, they see the money, they see the profits.
Because that's the basis to most conspiracies. Kind of like the weapons of mass destruction, right? They go into war, and who profits? Who profits from war? The military-industrial complex. The contractors. So if you're looking at who profits from something, because again, that's what you have to look at, right?
Follow the money, right?
Follow the money. Yeah. So if you're looking at who profits the most, why doesn't that lead people down the most
obvious,
the obvious path,
the
to
most
the NRA.
obvious. Yes, if you just follow the money. Instead, you have to say it's a deep state operation. Man, like I said, man, people are not using
and since
their mental faculties. And
since you did mention, you know, that particular person,
same progressive, a disgusting individual.
Yeah, because here's my thing. She referenced the Reichstag fire. I think in Facebook posts. She referenced the Reichstag fire in Berlin, Germany. She didn't say. She just said hashtag Reichstag. She didn't go into it and make some sort of like detailed analogy. She just used like hashtag Reichstag this and that. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, Reichstag was a fire that was supposedly like a strategy used by the Nazi Party to implicate their opponents. I guess to use, I guess, so that for the purpose of enacting emergency powers, the beginning of, well, the beginning, but like, I guess one of the events used to, I guess, start their authoritarian powers, you know what I'm saying, to transfer power over to them. So I'm thinking, I'm like, how does that even compare to this situation? I'm trying to figure out, how does this compare to that situation? How does this situation, this mass shooting, even if it was, you know, government orchestrated, how does that compare to the Reichstag fire? I was trying to figure out. And
there was something about Hitler in the message too, right?
Yeah, I believe something like that. Yeah.
Vile person, man. Vile.
So I'm trying to piece this together, because if it was used by the Nazis to implicate their opponents, and the shooter apparently was seen wearing, you know, MAGA paraphernalia. He was I guess seen saying racist things. There was some students who had offered some testimony as to their interactions with him, and they say, yeah, he was very extreme personality, spouting certain views, blah blah blah. So if the Reichstag fire was used to implicate the Nazis' opponents so they can take over, what is she trying to say? That somehow this has all the same markings? Like, this is going to be used to blame, you know, people who have the same type of sentiments as he does, the same types of sentiments that he expressed, and they're just kind of using him as a way to demonize people who have those sentiments? First of all, I don't need a shooting to do that. There are people who have the type of sentiments that he had are deplorable, in my opinion. They've always been. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know what she was getting at. I think people like that tend to put things out there for people to purposefully like fall into a conclusion that, you know, is sufficient for their consciousness. And I think it's just dangerous and irresponsible. And yeah, man,
whatever. But anyway, like we were saying, with Trump, of course, yeah, Trump made a statement about making schools safer is going to be a top priority. Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, said on Thursday, earlier today on a radio show, he said, quote, I don't think that means, well, actually, let me set up, because he said he would oppose any new regulations on, you know, on guns, any kind of gun control regulations. And he said, I don't think that means you then roll the conversation into taking away citizens' rights, taking away a law-abiding citizen's rights. Obviously, this conversation typically goes there. Laura Ingraham on Fox News, she said that in the wrong hands, an AR-15 can be turned into a killing machine. An AR-15 can be turned into a killing machine. An AR-15 is a killing machine. It is not used to protect ones from any kind of assault, like a home burglary, home invasion. What? No. You can do that with a shotgun. You can do that with a handgun. A semi-automatic weapon is meant for killing. It only has one purpose. It's not meant for hunting. It's not meant for your protection. It's meant for killing. That's it. It is a killing machine. So again, like, we've seen a lot of different people's different takes on this, and it always seems to go in, you know, a roundabout way. Like we see this all the time. You know, it starts with this tragedy. You know, it starts with a mass shooting, some kind of tragedy, right? Then it goes to thoughts and prayers. You know, you always see these politicians talks about thoughts and prayers. The people that you were listing, thoughts and prayers.
All those people
on Twitter,
all those people that get money from the NRA talk about thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, and I actually Stephanie Rule, that was on MSNBC, and there was actually a writer on the Jimmy Kimmel show. They had highlighted all these different politicians that were, you know, I guess sending all these thoughts and prayers to the families, and how much money they were receiving from the gun lobby, and it was in the millions, just like you were citing off. But yeah, so it starts with the tragedy, goes to, you know, thoughts and prayers, then the debate happens, right? And it's almost simultaneously. The debate happens, and people start pointing fingers that, well, no, it's you, no, it's you, and all these straw man arguments are here. Then after that, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens. Eventually, the whole situation gets lost. Everybody kind of forgets about it until the next shooting. It's a cycle that we live through all the time here in America. And it seems like the people that are actually tasked with making this country better, like actually coming to some agreements, like actually putting out some bills to make this country safer, they don't actually do that. What they do, though, they will give so much money to the military. Like, the military can't have enough money to go to war. But here on the homeland, we can't be safe. We can't be protected. Our schools can't even be protected.
The funniest thing about, like, the conversation is that, you know, people will say, like, well, you know, it's the people that shoot the people. It's not the guns.
It's not the guns.
Like,
it's the people.
Okay, then. That is the conversation that people are having. That, hey, if this person is not, I guess, capable or cannot handle a firearm or does not possess the mental stability to own a gun, then yeah, they shouldn't own a gun. That is the conversation. That's the whole, you know, conversation about around background checks.
Yeah,
you know, like
around universal
background checks. You know, like, this is the reason why, like. Now it's not as extensive as I would like, but if you want to be a police officer, they don't just want to see if you are proficient at shooting. You can't just say, I can hit all these targets, therefore I can be a police officer. No.
You have to assess situations too.
Assess situations, and also when you are filling out just the preliminary application that you have to fill out for most police departments, all the questions that you're answering, they're trying to see what your mental state is as well. And then when you go into a face-to-face interview, they ask you questions and they ask you things about yourself to see if you are mentally stable. They do further tests to see if you are mentally stable enough to carry a firearm, at least at a base level. So you mean to tell me that the suggestion that we should enact basic legislation in regards to, let's say, simple background checks, or let's just say maybe you have to go to shooting school for 28 days, or you have to pass all these, you know, tests, kind of like
dexterity tests,
just kind of like tests. when you want to own and drive a car legally. You mean to tell me that sensible legislation somehow is like
it's too far?
It's too far, but yet
tramples on your rights.
But police departments go through extensive training for the most part, at least at a baseline level, to make sure that officers are mentally ready. Now, the other things come in to place, and there are other factors involved in, like, let's say, police brutality. That's more or less abuse of power. That's probably what leads to, you know, police officers making wrong decisions, and not necessarily their mental clarity. But I just don't understand how you have to go through background checks for so many things, like for so many jobs, to get jobs.
But if you want a
mobile
map, if you want a mobile weapon of mass destruction,
you don't know that's sensible, and that's going to be used to take your guns away. But I'm just thinking, I'm like, wait a second, you don't want somebody on the road driving a car when they are not capable, right? We don't give people vehicles, and those vehicles are not used to kill people. They can, And that's why it's so important that those people have to get, I guess, face proper, educational instruction to get that license.
And that's why the automobile industry is heavily regulated.
Heavily regulated.
Not just in how the car must be, like how it must be put together, but how it must be driven on the road as well.
So do we still have cars because of those regulations? Are cars still on the road? Does that
nobody's taking away?
Nobody's taking away cars.
No, nobody's taking away. No.
And I don't care if you're a law-abiding citizen. If you can't fucking drive and you don't know how to drive, you're not getting a license. Like, simply because you are a law-abiding citizen, that doesn't mean you should be afforded the privilege to do everything, regardless of like how efficient or sufficient you are at that thing. Like, so there might be some law-abiding citizens out there. What if you can't drive and you can't pass a driver's test? Guess what? You don't get no license.
Yeah, you don't get to drive.
You don't get to drive a car.
Exactly. And see that's connected to what people say about the Second Amendment. They believe that the Second Amendment affords them the right to carry a weapon. It affords them the right to possess a weapon. Okay. So it does say, in the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, no doubt. A lot of people forget that, a well-regulated militia right at the beginning of the Second Amendment. But okay, whatever. Still, if you have a right to possess a weapon, if you have a right to own a weapon, does that mean you have a right to own every single weapon that there is? It doesn't. There are a lot of weapons out there that military personnel have that you can't get.
So when you get your driver's license, does that mean you can drive every single vehicle there is?
No.
Okay, then not only can you not drive every vehicle there is, you can't drive certain vehicles on certain roads.
No doubt. That's called regulation.
That's what our regulation.
That's called regulation.
And I think people are like kind of like miscontextualizing when I was bringing up police officers. I wasn't necessarily bringing up like that there are not police officers that aren't mentally capable. What I'm saying is that at least even if it's just for show, they do try to weed out some. There is some sort of like sifting process involved. That's all I was saying. I wasn't saying that like they're all police officers because they got the job or, mentally stable. We all know that's not true because they are a part of the society just like we are. My point was that there is at least some sort of like sifting process involved in hiring them that highlights their mental stability. And like I said, it's baseline, and I don't think it's extensive enough, but I'm just saying at least it's there. So it should be there in regard to like the same issue, which is weapons when it comes to legislation for the rest of the citizens. That was my point.
Earlier we talked about that there was a ban on automatic weapons. Somehow that didn't lead to this slippery slope where people are scared that the weapons are going to get taken away from them. It didn't lead to anybody's weapons getting rounded up, but for some reason, if, for say, you want to ban military style weapons, like killing machines, like Laura Ingraham said, if you want to actually ban those, that would lead to the slippery slope, and weapons would be took. Every weapon would be took.
Jay Scott
doesn't make any sense.
Jay Scott makes a great point, and actually it was something I was thinking about too, because it says someone made a good point that it is tricky when we have a governing body deciding who is sane or not. And actually, I don't think it should be a governing body. I guess I have the same position that I have like in regards to like substance abuse. We have law enforcement dealing with that, and we don't have like pharmacologists, we don't have psychologists, we don't have people who deal with actual treatment and actual like recovery programs dealing with that. We use the long arm of the law to deal with the substance abuse problem, and I think the same I guess strategy can be used to determine someone's mental state too. We wouldn't use government per se, because they have no background in that. Because people who I guess are serve on advisory boards to, like, let's say the EPA, they're supposed to have some sort of scientific background, and they use those advisors to construct legislation. So it's not the government per se, but the government is supposed to like have advisory boards that have people that have certain occupational expertise in regard to making decisions. And I think if the right people are involved in that, I don't think it would be seen as the government like determining that. Obviously, there would have to be some sort of agency created that has people that have a background in like a clinical psychology. In that way, maybe if it was done that way, but I guess when people say the government deciding who, like, who would be defined as the government? You know what I'm saying? Like the government we currently have now. But if we're going to tackle this issue, I think we do have to have people in place that have expertise in regard to like a clinical, like mental health.
Megyn Kelly actually said something real today, something that I actually was feeling. And before, I'm going to quote her. And before anybody gets the wrong impression, like I'm supportive of Megyn Kelly, I'm not. She said a lot of different things that are reprehensible that I don't agree with. And like I said, I don't support her. But when somebody says something that I believe is real, that I can, that kind of, I guess, touches me or like I said, that I can agree with, I don't have a problem with saying that, okay, well, this person got it right. If Mitch McConnell says something that was true, I wouldn't have a problem saying, yeah, that shit is true. I have no problem with that. But anyway, earlier today, she said, quote, the NRA is too powerful, our politicians are too weak, and the guns are too ubiquitous. She also said that it's not all on our politicians. I think this is along the line what you're talking about. But she said it's not all on our politicians. It's on us, and it's about what we allow. These politicians are in office because we put them there. We employ them. So if we aren't serious about this problem, then how in the world would we expect that they would be serious about it? Like, at least the politicians are getting paid to do nothing. We have regular Americans that are doing the NRA's work for them, saying that nothing should be done. We should have these bump stocks. We should have these AR-15 style weapons. We should have automatic weapons. We should have everything. And if you're not even getting paid for that position, at least the politicians are. But you are just, I don't know what you are, intern or something like that, unpaid assistant. Like you're getting nothing out of this except carnage. Like these politicians, I don't know if any of their families are being hurt by this gun violence. I usually don't hear about anything like that, their children or anything like that. I don't hear that. It's us. It's all of us regular people who are in these public schools, and they are the ones suffering this gun violence.
You just said it. Maybe that's what it is. If you think about a lot of people who can afford to send their kids to maybe a private school, maybe there's security at that private school.
Maybe, right?
Private security.
Maybe.
You know what I'm saying? So maybe they don't care because, they don't have to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like they don't care about, public health care because, they have all the money to afford the doctors that, their family needs. So maybe they don't care about public health care. Maybe they don't care about fair wages because that's not something that they have to experience. That's not something that they have to worry about. You know what I'm saying? So, maybe they don't really care about ever having to deal with it because they feel insulated from it. And like you said, they're insulated from it, but they're also getting paid.
They're also getting paid. So again, it makes sense that they would have these positions. It makes sense that they would want to do absolutely nothing because they're getting paid for it, right? But for regular people to take the same position, all we're getting out of it is carnage. That's all we're getting out of it. Like, if you would just slightly care about humanity, just slightly, maybe you could come to a position to where, you don't have to have every damn thing. You don't have to be so selfish to say that, everything you want supersedes the
greater good.
Yeah, the greater good. Like, the safety of everybody else. I think you'll be fine with, this load of weapons, and you don't have to have all of this.
So you're only going to be secure if you have an AR-15 on a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
If I don't have that, then
I can't protect my family. Not properly.
But see, again, that's not just the talking point. Is not just protecting your family. That is kind of keeping an overreaching government in check.
Right.
And my thing is, if the guns you currently haven't done that, that is a load of shit.
Yeah, the government is already tyrannical. What have you done about it?
Exactly. What have you done about it?
Nothing.
You haven't done anything about it.
One other place that this always goes, and I always see it. This is the place it goes. It goes to Australia. Okay. And a lot of people bring this up. Now, and actually, people bring it up on both sides. People that actually want something to be done, people that want change, and people that want no change. Now, the people that are on the NRA side and want absolutely no change, they will point to Australia and say that, look, okay, Australia's guns were taken away. The people's guns were taken away. It was a slippery slope. And you see what's happening now. Crime is on the rise, you know. And just because they don't have these type of guns, you know, knifing attacks are on the rise. Beatings are on the rise. Everything's on the rise. Homicides are on the rise, right? That's not true. That's not true at all. But see, I always see that. And I always, you know, another thing that I see is people saying that, and I think we said it earlier, that if you do take guns away,
that means the government will start to enact a lot of overreaching laws that will suppress everyone and disenfranchise everyone.
But even further, Hitler will arise.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is dumb because Hitler only took guns away from certain people.
Certain people.
Not everybody.
Yeah. But anyways, Australia, is there a Hitler?
I don't recall ever seeing Hitler start to rise. We may just need to give him more time.
Because it was the Australia National Firearms Agreement. It was passed in 1996. That was, what, about 22 years ago? On the way to 22 years ago? I haven't seen a Hitler rise up. Now, anyway, let's go to the raw numbers, okay? Because, like I said, I'm so tired of hearing this type of narrative that just because you take guns, it's not going to mean anything.
All your freedoms are going to go away.
Yeah, all your freedoms are going to go away, and people are just going to use another type of device, another tool to kill people. Okay, so let's talk about it. So, the Australian NFA was passed in 1996 after a mass shooting killed 35 people, and it injured many more. Right? Okay, so because of that bill, it outlawed certain semi-automatic weapons, self-loading rifles, and shotguns for individuals that are only going to use them for personal protection. Now, some of these guns are still available. You know, you can still get a permit to possess some of these guns, but it can't be because you want it for personal protection. It has to be like a legitimate reason. Also, because of the law, it created a national firearm registry, and no Hitler arrived. Huh. Okay. Also, it implemented a 28-day waiting period for sales. So, and another point, it also instituted a mandatory buyback program for firearms that were banned because of that 1996 law.
All right. Stop right there before you continue.
Okay.
So guns really didn't get taken away
no.
at all.
People were compensated for their weapons. They weren't taken. They weren't stripped away. You didn't see the long reach of the government knocking on people's doors. Hand over your weapons.
Coming door to door.
No, you didn't see that. Didn't see that at all. Anyway, so again, let's talk about the actual numbers, okay? So in 1996, there were 354 homicides in Australia. In 2013, there were 273 homicides.
So
none of which was the result of a mass shooting.
Okay, so that's 17 years later.
Yep.
Not only is there less
homicides,
total homicides, did the population go down?
The population went up.
Oh, so there was less homicides per capita.
Yes. Not only was there less homicides total, but like you said, per capita, less. The rate was less.
So pretty much people have been lying.
People have been lying.
So things got worse when the guns got taken away. Or not, sorry, they didn't get taken away.
Yeah.
There was
when they were compensated for their weapons. Yeah, no, things got better. Things got better. Now, let's take a deeper dive into it, okay? And talk about actual, how these homicides, I guess how these homicides happen. What tool was used for these homicides?
I'm assuming like stabbings went up, punchings went up.
Yeah. Had to, right? Had to. Okay. So from 1996 to 1997, there were 108 homicide incidents in which a knife or sharp instrument was used. From 2013 to 2014, there were 86 of such homicide incidents where a knife or a sharp a sharp instrument was used. 108 down to 86. Okay, all right. Also, over a 25-year period, this is starting in 1989, over a 25-year period, stab wounds were the greatest cause of homicide deaths in 23 of those years. So what that means is, prior to the 1996 law, which banned certain weapons, stab wounds were already the greatest cause of deaths that are homicide related. And then after the law, it still remained that stab wounds were the greatest cause of deaths for homicides. In 23 of the 25 years, there was 1 year where gunfire eclipsed stab wounds. 1 year.
So why do people have to misrepresent what happens in Australia? Like why? Like what is your what do you think the reasoning is? Like why would they have to misrepresent what happens in Australia if they kind of think their position is sound? If they think there's that, that any kind of legislation that is put forth to kind of like mitigate all these issues, like, because why do you think this? So they purposely put out misinformation.
They need a reference point. They need an example of a slippery slope,
and they can't find.
They can't find one, but they can find Australia, and as long as they don't point to like hard numbers, then they can say whatever the hell they want to. They can shape Australian as some dystopian kind of place where shit just got so much worse. Like, it doesn't matter if you take guns, shit is just gonna get worse. No. And you know what? I have these websites for anybody that actually wants to go check them out. This is one website where you can get some raw numbers. We're going to put this in the description as well for anybody that wants to check this out. This is from factcheck.org. And if you know how some people are like, oh, you can't trust that website, right? That's come on, man. That's all propaganda, right? Okay. All right. You don't like that one? How about from the government in Australia? Is that legit? From the government in Australia? Because they provided these numbers as well. That's crime stats, .gov.au. If anybody doesn't know, that's Australian website, a government website. Anybody is, free to check out these websites. But I just thought that was interesting, man. I just thought that was interesting. So there is no example that if we were to ban certain type of weapons, that it would lead to, one, all weapons being taken, or two, more deaths in different ways.
You know what it would lead to? It would lead to weapons manufacturers losing money. That's exactly what it would lead to. You know what I'm saying? And if anything, like unconditionally allowing anybody to have a weapon, whose purpose does that serve? Like, if we got to ask, like, what purpose does it serve, and whose purpose does it serve?
Exactly, like you said, you got to follow the money, right? Not just like we were saying.
And again, it's
follow the money and follow the purpose.
And so, our leaders are willing to take a payout so that situations are like this shooting in Florida are, I guess, have a high chance in happening, have a high probability of happening. And guess what happens? All this hysteria gets created.
Yep.
And nothing ever gets done. Not only does nothing ever get done, I think that if anything the hysteria creates is like, it's not the distraction that it doesn't create a distraction. To me, I think that mass hysteria and allowing the mass hysteria from all this gun violence is exactly what the government wants. So you can pay attention to that. So if anything, it just serves the broader needs of the government taking rights away in other areas.
Right.
So they let all this chaos happen, knowing that it's going to happen.
No, that's gonna happen.
Even if, let's just say, the government is behind it. Government could be behind it and letting us shoot ourselves in the foot, letting us create all this chaos. So then we focus on this and not focus on those broader issues where, you know, we're being disenfranchised.
Yeah, let's fight over this, knowing that nothing's gonna actually, like, there's not gonna be any headway.
So let's let them fight. Let's let them fight over this.
Yeah, while we get paid.
Well, let's let them fight over this while we get paid, and take away rights on probably more important issues.
Like I said, man, there are some polls that say that 90% of people back universal background checks. Now, it always surprises me, like, you know, who in the hell would be on the other side of universal background checks? Because we always hear it all the time, right? Even from people that cling to the guns and don't want anything done. They want people that shouldn't have them to not have weapons. All right, we need mental health. You know, people that shouldn't have guns shouldn't have them. You know, but law-abiding Americans, no, we should have whatever we want. Okay, so if criminals are getting guns because they can bypass a background check, wouldn't you have a problem with that? Wouldn't everybody have a problem with that?
But guess what, though? If you are a law, like, and that's why it doesn't make sense logically, because if you are law-abiding, then you would have nothing to worry about on a background check. No. Like, the fact that you are law-abiding will reflect in the background check. No difference than a background check being used prior to your employment somewhere. Right. Most employers use a background check. And so you should have nothing to worry. I can't sit there and say, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Like, why do I have to go through a background check? Well, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you have nothing to worry about.
And these are actually, I mean, like, we can actually have different conversations about, you know, gun violence. Because would a background check have prevented this school shooting? No, it wouldn't have, because I don't believe this guy had a criminal record. So it wouldn't have done anything. But in other situations, yes, it would have. Dylan Roof shooting up the church in Charleston, that would have done something, because he had a domestic violence charge. It was something, a drug charge, something, I can't remember. But he had a charge. But they weren't able to finish the background check within 3 days, because you only have 3 business days to finish it. If you don't, then the retailer has the right to sell that weapon, and that's exactly what the retailer did. In Sutherland Springs, that guy shouldn't have had a weapon, but slipped through the cracks. 3 days, you know, that's it. Sorry. And actually, it wasn't even about the 3 days. It was about the Air Force not providing the information to the federal registry. So, like I said, we can have different conversations. Do metal detectors need to be in schools? I mean, I'm not against it, but that would take money that this administration doesn't want to give towards schools. So, like I said, I mean, there's a number of ways to talk about this, but something needs to be done. Not nothing, not thoughts and prayers. Like, something needs to be done.
Yeah, and you know what is just as bad as thoughts and prayers? Always jumping to the like the worst possible scenarios, false flag. That's just as bad as thoughts and prayers, because to me that's a thought, and that's just as flimsy as a thought and prayer, because you don't know jack. A thought and prayer is going out into the ethers and going nowhere. Right. False flag is actually going out into the ethers and into nowhere too, because you don't have any information to back it up. You see what I'm saying? No different than somebody not having information to back up whether their thoughts and prayers are being answered. So
I'm not gonna issue any thoughts and prayers to the families. I'm not even a religious man, so I'm not gonna say thoughts and prayers. I hope that the people affected by this tragedy somehow get to a point where they can find some peace with it and kind of just look back on their memories with you know, their loved ones that are no longer here, and I guess appreciate the moments that they had, you know, that they got to spend with them. Like I said, healing is what I wish for these people that are affected by this, and for the country. Do something, man. Like, do something, not nothing. All right, Facebook, we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna do the rest of this show on YouTube. Thank you for being with us. The link to the Facebook feed is in the description, so just click that and you'll be taken to the rest of the show. All right, peace out. All right, so today in the Senate, senators were discussing a bipartisan agreement, a bipartisan plan that would have protected the 1.8 million young immigrants that could be protected, with, you know, with a DACA type legislation. And it seems like they did actually come to an agreement, a bipartisan agreement. What would have happened is that they would have been, these 1.8 million people would have been protected from deportation. Also, it would have provided about $25 billion towards border security measures. So both of those things were part of the President Donald Trump's 4-point plan that he wanted. But
there was something missing.
Yeah, well, there were like two things missing. Yeah. So Trump is not happy about that. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who's the White House press secretary, she said that if Trump was presented with such a plan, that his advisors would recommend that he veto the bill.
So he would veto something that's bipartisan, even though that's kind of what he claimed he wanted.
Yes.
But what he really means is, I want a bipartisan bill that has everything that I wanted in it from the beginning, which is not bipartisan. He wants both Republicans and Democrats
to agree to what he wants.
To agree with everything.
Yep.
That's what bipartisan means to him. Bipartisan to him doesn't mean that, hey, there's going to be some bargaining, going back and forth, some negotiation, going back and forth. Some things that you don't like, some things that they don't like. Between the Democrats and Republicans. When you instruct Congress to do something, right, and you like put forth ideas, you put forth things that you want to see happen, you have to assume that there are going to be some Democrats that like and dislike some of the things. There's going to be some Republicans that like and dislike the things. So
that's why it's called bipartisan.
So there's some things that are going to get taken out or added. Again, to him, it just means both sides agreeing on everything he wanted.
Well, because the way he acts, it kind of seems like he's a dictator, like an authoritarian type.
You don't say.
Individual.
You don't say.
Now, back in December. No. Oh, sorry. 1 month ago, about 1 month ago, this was in January. Trump said that he would sign whatever piece of legislation that comes to his desk. If it was
bipartisan.
Yeah, if it was bipartisan, it was protecting these people, these dreamers, the DACA individuals, he would sign whatever came to his desk. He actually said, I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I will be signing it. Here we are, about a month later, a bipartisan deal would have come to his desk. Most likely would have come to his desk. But before that even happens, he's saying that absolutely not. I'm not going to back this. I'm not going to support this at
basically, all. Like, so that should tell you right there what he really means, because he's not even, hasn't even seen it yet.
But you remember, he wants a bill of love.
I was about to say.
About this deal, the White House said it, quote, would undermine the safety and security of American families and impede economic growth for American workers. Also, and it would result in, quote, a flood of new illegal immigration in the coming months. Now, let's talk about that part of the statement right there. It would flood a flood of new illegal immigration in the coming months, right? Now, the reason they said that is because of this bipartisan agreement. it would temporarily suspend deportations of people that have not committed some kind of crime, like convicted of serious crimes. So people that have been living here for some time, or whatever, these people that we're hearing about that have been here for 30, 40 years, haven't been convicted of any crimes, are here, with a job, with families. Like I said, they're being a positive force in our society, a positive force in the economy. These type of people, right? And others, I guess, right? It would temporarily suspend deportations of these people, again, that have not committed serious crimes. That's why the White House is saying that this would lead to like a flood of new immigration, of new illegal immigration. And so I got I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, hold on. First of all, because of this bipartisan agreement, you're going to get 25 million. No, hold on. Did I say million? 25 billion for border security. That's what you want, because you want to protect against illegal immigration.
So if he's getting more money like on the table for border security, then how does this deal, this bipartisan deal, lead to a flood of illegal? How does that?
You're going to be ramping up security. So you're going to be able to prevent illegal immigration even better now, right? So that's one. Two, what logical sense does this make? Because the whole thing about this bipartisan agreement saying that they would temporarily suspend deportations of people that have not been convicted of serious crimes, how would that lead to more people coming into the country? I can only assume they're saying that, oh, well, people will think like, hey, they're not going to deport us. Let's rush into the country. But this only pertains to people from here and back. This doesn't pertain to new people coming into the country.
I don't know if he's just that dumb or trying to play that dumb. Like, you think he's that dumb? Do you think that he thinks that's going to encourage people who are like just to cross the border so they can take advantage of this new or if this bipartisan bill gets passed?
It's not like the bipartisan deal was like, hey, everybody, we're not deporting anybody anymore. Come on over.
I don't think he thought that far. I truly don't think that that's what he's thinking. That's going to cause a flood.
He can't. He can't, man.
Even if he doesn't, he's still dumb.
Yep. But who else is dumb? The Department of Homeland Security, because they're saying very similar things. They put out a statement on this bipartisan deal. It said, quote, "It would be the end of immigration enforcement in America and only serve to draw millions more illegal aliens with no way to remove them. By halting immigration enforcement for all aliens who arrived before June 2008, it ignores the lessons of 9/11 and significantly increases the risk of crime and terrorism."
Yo, so immigration, the bill doesn't eliminate current immigration enforcement laws.
Nope, it sure doesn't. It doesn't.
It talks about the people who are already here.
Already here. And again, 25 billion going towards your precious border security, which is what you requested. You requested a lot of money going towards border security so that you can shore up our deficiencies along the border and keep out illegal immigrants, right? Come on, man. So anyway, this bill failed in the Senate, and they're back to square one because Trump indicated that he was not going to be signing this. So back to the drawing board. DACA, again, it expires, that grace period, that 6-month grace period, it expires March 5th, I believe. So I guess unless Trump gets every single measure of that 4-point plan that he talked about at the State of the Union, I guess nothing's going to happen. That's the way it seems.
But he's a great negotiator.
And he believes in bipartisan legislation.
I think he just likes that word bipartisan because it sounds good. What you want to go to next?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. All right. Well, this isn't really... This is a ridiculous thing to mention. This isn't really a story. So I'm sure people have heard about this porn star that Trump supposedly, you know, slept with while he was married back in 2006. Her name is Stormy Daniels. At least that's her porn star name. Her real name is Stephanie Clifford.
Yeah, she had to change that.
Yeah, that's not a porn star name. But anyway, a lot has been made about, you know, the press has been talking about it. A lot of media have been talking about it. And what has been talked about is if Trump actually paid her money, some hush money, over $100,000 to keep quiet about the affair. So as of yet, you know, she hasn't come out and said anything about it. I know there was some typed up letter that she supposedly signed that said like nothing happened between them, but I don't know how accurate or authentic
it
that
could be
was.
like a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, so I don't know. But anyway, so recently Trump's personal lawyer, his name is Michael D. Cohen, he said that he in fact did pay this porn star, Stormy Daniels, $130,000 to keep quiet about the affair that they had back in 2006. And this was paid to her before the election. It was like just before the election. Now he said this wasn't paid through Donald Trump, like through campaign funds or anything like that. This was paid through his money. He issued a personal payment to this woman. So there's, you know,
there's nothing there.
There's nothing there. Nothing to see.
Even though it's his lawyer. But why would you? But still, like you're still saying that it's like it's almost like you think you're coming out and admitting to something that's going to vindicate you, but actually, it actually points a target.
It does.
It actually makes it. Like,
that's why I never. That's why I never thought like he would actually say that. Like,
I'm like, wait a second, like, but why would you? Why would you pay her?
Yeah.
Like you're basically admitting that there was a reason for the payment. It's like, no, it didn't come from him. It came from me. But I was like, but you're the lawyer, so you're still trying to protect something.
He don't got no rich friends that aren't his lawyer. You know, like I get you back. I got you, man. I got you. You know I'm good for it. Like he ain't got nobody like that. It has to be his lawyer, and then his lawyer comes out and actually confesses to it. Like I said, that was surprising.
So so even if it's his lawyer who did it, but like you have to ask the question, like, why would the lawyer pay?
I don't know.
It doesn't even make sense. Like again, you're actually incriminating your boy.
Yeah, I know.
He's actually incriminating Trump.
Yeah.
And
saying that it happened.
Yeah. But he's trying to say that, I guess because they're trying to avoid maybe some violation of campaign finance laws, that I did it.
Yeah.
But now you are admitting to the event that Trump was saying never happened.
I don't know, man.
So you're admitting to something to avoid something that you see as a potentially greater amount of punishment applied to it.
Yes. Like I said,
situation.
I never thought that. I thought it was just going to be something that was going to continue to be denied, and it would never go anywhere.
It was never go anywhere. People come out of the woodworks.
Exactly.
Especially if somebody's a prominent figure, even if it's Trump.
By admitting to it, now you breathe life into it, you know? So anyway.
He's a bad lawyer.
Yeah.
That's a bad lawyer, dog.
But anyway, so but there's more. Like I don't like, you know, he had an affair, whatever. The money thing, that's
I could care less if he had an affair.
Yeah, I could care less. But anyway,
I had to get half the government out of this mug.
I know, right? But there's more to this story now because it's being reported that she may have a Monica Lewinsky dress. She may have a dress that she has saved and preserved from that night in 2006, and it is also being reported that she may have this dress tested for DNA to prove that this tryst between her and Donald Trump actually happened.
So she got a dress that has some Trump juice on it?
Maybe.
Okay. Some evidence. That's funny. That's funny to me.
That is funny. That is funny.
Honestly,
again, this is not much of a story. Like I don't really care, but like that it's out there like this. And if she actually does have this dress and gets it tested, like I said, this is a whole ordeal that's going to continue.
I think probably the focal point should be like where the money came from.
Yes, that'll be the focal point.
Came from specifically his campaign.
Then that's the trouble.
That's the troubling part,
right?
You know what I'm saying? All the other stuff about the Lewinsky dress and whether he had an affair with the porn star. Like, this is Trump. We already know.
Exactly.
We already know who this dude
is.
It's
just gonna make him look bad.
It's gonna be well. There's really nothing that can make him look bad.
Well, it'll make him look bad to people like, I guess, normal people.
Well, but there's
normal people that are objective.
But there's I guess if you are a normal person at this time, then you already know this Joker. Yeah. There's nothing that's going to further deteriorate your ideas of his character.
Well,
and there's nothing that's going to deteriorate his character like to people who unconditionally support him. I don't think anything like this would matter to them.
But the people, see, I'm talking about certain people. The people that you would think it would push away would be those evangelicals. But it's not going to. It's not going to.
But he has already enough on the table to push them away already.
But see, the other, like, he's checking enough boxes to where they're comfortable with still supporting him. Like, it doesn't matter if any of this stuff comes out, you know, that's very troubling or like kind of, I guess, rub some dirt in his, you know, his character, his morality, his ethics. Like, sorry, he believes in pro-life. So what?
He believes in punishing women who get abortions and stuff like that. So.
Exactly. So
as long as he does those things,
then he can do whatever else he wants to.
Everything else is acceptable.
Yeah. So yeah, there's this one video that I saw too, and again, this is just some light news. Most of everything that's going on right now is talking about the situation that happened in Florida, and rightfully so. You know, we don't have a ton of stories or anything like that to highlight. Something that is very light in news came from Shanghai, China, and you haven't even seen this video.
This mug said, "I ain't gonna show it to you. I'm gonna wait to show it to you."
I want a pure reaction, man. So anyway, we didn't have time to go through it anyway. It's just like a 20-minute video. But anyway, apparently, the Shanghai Public Security Bureau, they had this video from a surveillance camera of two would-be criminals. The two would-be criminals that were trying to break in to some place, and they caught the camera footage and they put it out there, I guess, because they want some information to try to identify these people and go after them. But here's the video. It's ridiculous. All right. You know what? Hold on 1 second. Now we have to make it bigger real quick. All right. Hold on. Let me start it over. All right. So this is the video. All right. So you see those two walking up. What are they going to do? So they got bricks in their hands. Dude smacked him upside the head with a brick, man. And then he is obviously out. Now, again, Shanghai police are looking for these two individuals. But this is one of the worst attempted robberies I have ever seen in my life. Did you not see the dude walking past him? He didn't stop his arm at any point.
I think that one dude who hit his partner upside the head with a brick, not only should he be charged with like some vandalism or attempted robbery, he should be charged with aggravated assault.
You know what would be funny?
They should charge him with aggravated assault, his own boy.
What would be funny if the dude that got hit actually come forward. He's like, yo, man, I've been assaulted. You've seen it on camera.
Yeah, I know, right? I need you, the evidence is there. It doesn't matter that I was trying to do it too. I was trying to commit a crime too, but what you need to do is you need to get this dude.
And I'm actually the one that threw a brick into the place of business, actually. The other one threw a brick into me. Just, That's horrible, man. I just saw that video early, and I was like, my gosh, yeah, that goes in the Hall of Fame right there, because it completely foiled the attack.
My thing
they
is,
had to go away.
Like, you're not good at committing crime. Like you need to like that.
Obviously, they were rookies.
They're not only they're rookies, but that's to me, like that should tell them right there that they. I was like, yo, man, maybe we should get like regular jobs. Because we're not really good at this.
I'll go back to the drawing board.
This is one.
We need some more practice.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's videos that lends credence to the whole idea that only dumb people commit crime.
Right.
I don't think that's true, but it does kind of leads credence to that, like that notion. Because I mean, if you think about it, like if you were smart enough to get away with most crime, you're probably smart enough not to do crime in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, because, hey, most criminals do eventually get captured.
Most criminals get caught because of dumb stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't get caught because of, like, grade A police work for the most part. They get caught because they left something.
Exactly.
Or they hit their partners in the head with bricks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he had to drag that dude away, man. That dude was probably out.
Dog, you know what, dog? Actually, you know what? I may go against my initial assessment.
Yeah, what's up?
I may look at that if I'm the dude that got hit in the head with a brick. I might be like, you know what? Even though he hit me in the head with a brick, he cared about me enough to not leave me. Because I tell you what, dog. If we just like if we ain't friends, and we just like, you know, let's say we met somewhere and we like, yo, we can hit this place up, and blah blah blah, and then that happens, and I don't know this joker that I just hit in the head, I'm out.
I'm rolling.
I'm like, dog, I can't. I'm not. This is not no soldier left behind moment. I'm dipping. I'm not staying here, but I might have to go back and say
they might be close, man.
They might be real close.
They might be close.
They might have been brothers.
Yeah, they might have been, man.
But to carry your boy off, and like
he cared about him.
I was like, damn. I can't leave my boy here after I clocked him on the head. So, you know, it's not and dragging somebody who is like almost lifeless is harder. Dead weight is just different than dragging somebody who's
and you know he was probably panicked at that point too.
Yo,
one, he hit his boy upside the head. Two, it's like, damn, is anybody gonna catch us?
Like, and my thing is, there's probably a lot of things going through his head. Like, do I take him to the hospital, or do I trust that I just knocked him out and he gonna come too? You know what I'm saying? That's funny.
That was funny. So we got one more video, right? And so this is a video about Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro is a conservative political commentator.
Ben Shapiro is like a smart person to idiots. Yeah,
man. He talks in a very articulate way.
And very fast.
Very fast. And see, the one thing about him too is that, like, if you come to him, because I'm not gonna say he's dumb. He comes off with some pretty dumb arguments. But I don't think he's like lacking up here. I think the dude is probably a smart guy, but he just comes across as very stupid sometimes. But if you come at him with a dumb argument or something that you haven't, like, is not well developed in your head, like you're not able to actually articulate your position very well, then a lot of times he can shut you down. So if you're not good at debating, if you're not good at knowing what the hell you're talking about, then yeah, he can shut you down, right? So there's a lot of videos.
Ben Shapiro destroys SJW.
Ben Shapiro owns SJW. Well, like there's so many videos
Ben
like
Shapiro,
that. Ben Shapiro
destroys feminist.
Yeah,
like
there's so many
man-looking
like
feminists. Some stupid. It's like,
and it's to me, most of those videos, it seems like they're cherry picking.
Oh no,
they're cherry picking like the stupidest arguments to show Ben Shapiro in the limelight and shutting somebody down when like the argument shouldn't even be had in the first place. It's stupid.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be even highlighting it.
It's basically like all those videos are designed to do is market him in a certain way.
Yeah,
it's designed to market him in a certain way because he doesn't possess any of the traits that would make that a reality. So they have to kind of like create it. They have to create a persona around him to create this this notion of him as being like this supreme intellectual when he's not. And for the most part, it doesn't matter where you go on the internet, whether it's social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. If somebody is delivering their opinion, no matter what side they fall in, sometimes it doesn't come down to how insightful they are. It doesn't come down to whether the points they're making are legitimate or whether they're fallacious or not. Intellect to some people is a style. Intellect to some people is just like your tonage and like I guess your voice inflection. You see what I'm saying? And so it's not really about any substance. This is not just apply to him. It just implies in general. Sometimes that's all people need. Or if you use certain terminology. You know what I'm saying?
So let's get to the video. Okay, so it's only like about, a little bit less than a minute and a half. So let me set this up real quick. I think everything's going well with the stream. Okay. All right, so this is the video here. All right.
Everyone in the media is talking about the most important thing that has ever happened in the history of humanity, or at least since Caitlyn Jenner became a woman, a transgender woman. And that, of course, is the release of Black Panther. It is so deeply important. It is, we've heard it's deeply important to millions of Black Americans who, after all, were not liberated from slavery 200 years ago and liberated by the civil rights movement with federal legislation, have not been gradually restored to what always should have been full civil rights in the United States. I mean, none of that has mattered up till they made a Marvel movie about a superhero who is Black in a country filled with Black people. This is the most important moment in Black American history. Not Martin Luther King, not Frederick Douglass, not the Civil War, not the end of Jim Crow. The reason I'm mocking a little bit is because I hate this kind of identity politics. I think it's incredibly stupid. Right? We heard this about Barack Obama when he was elected too. Now that Obama's been president, Black Americans will feel like they too can be president. It's a transformative moment. And yet, all we hear now is that America is deeply racist and Black people are still systemically discriminated against, and that Black people are still victims in American society. So it turned out it didn't mean anything. When Obama was president, we were told it meant everything. And then he was president for 2 terms, right? Reelected overwhelmingly. And then it turns out it didn't mean anything because we needed Chadwick Boseman to somehow make sure that Black people felt accepted in American society because a bunch of white executives at Marvel greenlit a film about Black people in a fictional country in Africa.
Now, that was only a short clip.
Yeah, this video was actually
about 15 minutes long.
Yeah, he went about like 12, 13 minutes on this. And he touched a few different things, but it was all rooted in like, all right, I don't get all this excitement for Black Panther. I mean, like, why are people treating this like this is bigger than slavery? Like, this is the biggest achievement in Black history.
And like later in his like rant, he talked about, I guess he disagreed with the premise of Wakanda, which I don't think he actually has the complete premise of Wakanda. And
well, he hasn't seen the movie.
He hasn't seen the movie. He hasn't even seen the movie.
He hasn't seen the movie.
And
I don't know if anybody gets the complete premise.
Nobody gets a complete. Yeah, I know of the movie yet. So the whole idea about a land that has not been invaded by anybody, and that is
not
colonized, but this land is still technologically advanced.
Yes.
He has a big problem with that because he says that this is being presented as reality, but then he takes like most of the show, 10 minutes of the show, trying to prove that this fictional show isn't real. But at the same time, he's instructing all of us, especially Black people, to recognize that this is not reality. He even says, he says that it's being made into a reality.
Yeah, like at first, because at first he started off by saying that he started off with like mocking it, and you heard him because he even addressed that because he was like, this is the single greatest achievement in Black history, and it's bigger than Martin Luther King, bigger than the civil rights, and it's all about this fake place, this fake movie, and like you didn't like when Barack Obama was president. You know that didn't get it done. You had to have a Marvel movie about black people that got it done. But he was saying that this place is not real. Like, it's not real. I don't know what the big deal is. Why are you getting so excited? But then for the large part of this video, he's ranting about how it's not real. He's like trying to prove the case of how it's not real.
See,
like he's trying to convince himself that this land is not real and it cannot be real. And even though he just got done saying that it wasn't real.
And the reason why
why are you getting so mad?
The reason why he's mocking is because his entire point is based on a multitude of straw men. Number one, it's like, yeah, people are excited, but I have not really heard people in mass, I guess, talk about it in a way that makes it more important than the freeing of slaves. Or
nobody has talked about it in a way that he did.
Nobody's talking that way. It's like okay. If you have to spend so much time trying to disprove a notion in a fictional movie, that might mean, because again, he's trying to project what he says is a false premise onto everyone else. Like, oh, this is a false premise. I need to make sure they understand it's a false premise and not real. That must mean he feels some type of way about the premise, and he might think that maybe a little bit of that premise is true. And that premise is that, you know, there could be a land full of black people, you know, that did not get colonized, did not get invaded, that would, you know, advance and have advanced technology.
Like they would be successful as a people, as a nation.
And actually, if you think about it, it doesn't matter who that premise applies to. Most likely that's going to be true. I don't care what color those people are. Most likely, if somebody's, you know, place of like residence, just even if you're talking about somebody's place of residence, their land, if they do not get invaded, if their development is not stagnated or stymied, if they're allowed to progress naturally, most likely they would advance as a culture and as a group of people. That would apply to anybody. And he somehow dislikes that premise, even if it's in a fictional movie. Not only that, that's not even. But in Wakanda, there was some. It wasn't just them though. It was, they had some, I guess, relationships with aliens that helped them as well. So
again, nobody's seen the movie.
Nobody's seen the movie, and again, nobody's saying that part is reality. Now, in any movie, there is going to be certain things we project on it that exist with, like, in real life. But obviously there's going to be fantasy elements to it. So yes, there may be some real themes and themes that could apply to the real world that get incorporated into movies. This is not a new thing.
Exactly. See, that's the point. This is not the whole point about this movie not being a real thing. Like, if you don't believe a nation that is a separatist type of nation that doesn't involve themselves in other white places, because that's the point he was making too. Like, if you don't have I guess if white people aren't touching you, you know, how did that fare for, you know, the Japanese in different countries? So again, he's trying to make this into a real type situation, but this is a fictional fantasy type movie that is not even an original type concept. There's been many movies with the same concept where there is a land that is far away from everybody else, that has been untouched. And I don't remember Ben Shapiro getting all worked up because they are, I guess they're creating a story, a fictional story about how they are successful being alone.
Oh no, what it's about is it's interesting because he loosely makes the case for multiculturalism, but specifically that white people are not involved in the creation of the culture, and not white people who are involved in advancing the society. That's what he's mad about. He's mad that there is a fictional story about a group of people that have advanced without white people. That's why he's
black
mad.
people.
This is about
he saves his outrage for when the story is about a land of black people.
Even though there's plenty of movies out there where there's nothing but white people in them. But he says he's mad at identity politics, but then he makes the case of why there's identity politics all throughout his rant. He talks about Martin Luther King. He talks about the civil rights movement. He talks about the ending of slavery, which identity is centered upon all those movements. So I don't understand why he makes it a point to say this is identity politics.
But why do you even talk about identity politics when this is a fictional movie?
Not only
this is for entertainment purposes. This isn't trying to push an agenda.
And there's an assumption.
It's a Marvel movie.
There's an assumption because everyone is black. That means everyone is the same or homogenous. Even though there's a lot of diversity with people who have the same skin color. If you're going to make that argument.
But again, why are you even the term? I mean, if you're talking about identity politics, why are you doing that in referencing a movie? It seems like you're only doing that because this movie is about black people and black people are excited about it. So let's go there for a second, okay? Are black people excited about this movie? Yeah, they are. But so are white people. I mean, a lot of people are excited about this movie.
Because it's a Marvel movie about a superhero.
It's a Marvel movie. I love Marvel movies. I've seen every single one of them. I've seen the Captain America movies, the Iron Man movies, Spider-Man, all the main Avenger movies. I've seen those as well. I'm always excited about them. Now, are black people specifically excited about a movie that has a black superhero? Of course they are. Now, but he makes the case about like, hey, you had a Blade, you had who was it with Halle Berry, Catwoman, yeah. All right, and he didn't make the case, but I can say it too. Will Smith and Hancock, right? Those are all black superheroes, right?
But he's a drunk. But Hancock, can take away Hancock. He
came up though.
He's a drunk dude that
reformed himself.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? Towards the end of the movie, you know what I'm saying? He was an upstanding superhero.
An alcoholic that didn't recognize his power.
Exactly. But anyway, these were all black superheroes, right? But the difference between those black superheroes in this movie is that the cast of Black Panther is predominantly black.
Again,
when have we seen a major movie picture? Not talking about just some B-rated movie or anything like that. No, this is a Marvel movie with, this is going to be in the limelight. It's already breaking records, right? We just heard that. It's already breaking records for the sales, for pre-sales. So this is a major movie picture about a black superhero, and not just the main character is black, but the whole cast is predominantly black. That hasn't happened before. Not that I can know, at least not in modern times. Not a major movie picture.
Major movie picture. And like the irony is that again, he's mentioning all these points in history where somehow represent some advancement for black people. But like and then he mentions Barack Obama, he was supposed to be like that one of those like that moment, one of those moments.
Yeah, one of
but
those
I'm like,
moments where
but he doesn't
encourage black people.
But that's it though. He doesn't list anything that happened during Barack Obama's presidency that kind of facilitated the advancement for equality. He just said Barack Obama was enough for that.
Well, yeah, because he said Barack Obama, he was supposed to, I guess he was supposed to encourage black people to say, hey, I can be anything I want to be. But maybe he tied it to racism and stuff like that. And then after Barack was gone, we still have the same thing. Racism is here and everything like that.
He says, all we hear is about how black people are disenfranchised and everyone's racist. And I'm like, see, this is what like white bigots do to kind of like try to squash conversations. They're very hyperbolic about how people like, I guess, how people represent, like, I guess their disagreement with the society that they live in. Like, he has to be hyperbolic about how people make their arguments. Like, is that... He's saying that's all we hear.
That's not all you hear.
You know why that's all we hear? And I'll tell you.
That's all he hears.
That's no. I think like with people like him, is specifically people like him, he only pays attention to black people in those moments. So then he himself creates his own perception about what black people talk about, because he only pays attention when black people talk about those things. He doesn't value black people in any area other than that. So he's creating his own misperception of black people and then getting mad at that misperception.
See, this is the whole thing about representation too, because he made the argument that like black people shouldn't need a movie, or black people shouldn't need a figure like Barack Obama being president to say like, hey, child, you can do anything you want to do, you can be anything you want to be. But you know, I have a problem with that because one, it's actually factually incorrect, right? So he said he made the case about like his daughter was talking about, has there ever been a Jewish president, and he said no, or maybe it was his son, I can't remember if he has a daughter or a son, I think it was a daughter, but he was saying no, and then she said, well, why not? He was like, well, you know, that's just the way it's been. And he was like, but maybe, you know, in the future there will be. And he said, do you want to be president? And she's like, no, you know, I think that job would be boring, and you know, blah blah, funny, whatever, right? But he's like, I teach my daughter that she can be anything she wants to be, and you know, you shouldn't have to have a Jewish president to make that case for her, right? But this is the thing, right? With black people, representation is a very big thing, because in this country it's something that's ignored, something that black people have to do for themselves a lot of times. That's the whole reason why there are black organizations. That's why there's a BET channel and black awards and stuff like that, because for so long you couldn't just rely on white people to try to celebrate your achievements. It wasn't happening. So for black people to come up with the knowledge or with the idea that, yeah, maybe I can do anything I want to be. Sure, maybe some, you know, I didn't grow up in extreme poverty, so I came up with that idea. But there's a lot of people in this country, a lot of black people in this country who come up in very dire-like conditions, in poverty, extreme poverty. And especially back in the day when they're not seeing any representation of what they can be. Sure, maybe their parents are saying that they can go as far as the moon, but if they don't actually see that, if they don't actually have any tangible evidence of that, how real is that dream actually going to be for them?
No, we only need one representation. That's Obama. That's the
Exactly.
president. So that's funny how he does acknowledge that he's not just poking fun in that case, but he is acknowledging that the necessity for there to be a representation, but only in regard to the president. So why wouldn't it apply in other areas? Also, can't there be gradations in like, I guess, how people are represented and how people, like, I guess, seek to be represented equally, not just like in, like, I guess, politics,
right,
but it applies to other areas too. Like he mentions all those things like the civil rights, Martin Luther King, slavery, yada yada, all that. But he's acting like somehow those things are signifiers that we have gotten to that place where we need to be. He, as somebody who identifies as who he identifies with, and that's based on his perception, he has made the determination for us, like what's good enough for us, what's good enough for black people, and not viewing it as like some sort of gradation. The gradations are going to be there. Yes, we have to tackle this, and this in this area, and we've tackled this in that area. That doesn't go away simply because we have other issues we want to address in this modern area. It doesn't mean that all those things that did happen that he highlights don't mean anything to us. But again, he's another person that's really, you know, on the outside trying to tell us, like, what is enough? Like, how far can we go in regard to how we, like, I guess, seek our own value in this world? And like you said, if you are not represented, then obviously you're going to, like,
you're going to feel the ceiling.
You're going to feel, and you're going to seek things that do represent you in a more broad way. It's not that complicated to think about. But like I said, maybe there's a little bit of truth to the notion, you know, that he's so upset about, you know what I'm saying? You know, about people being allowed to flourish.
Yeah. Without white people.
And no, but see,
because he made that case.
He said, and that was the case that he was making. Because
you're telling me that this is a nation that white people haven't touched and is flourishing. They're a separatist nation. They're isolationists and they're flourishing. Can't be true.
But see, again,
show me one nation like that. Like this is a movie.
He doesn't agree with the premise of, I guess, the utopian right. aspect of this movie is unrealistic because, you know, in real life, because we're talking about real life now.
Yes.
So he skips back and forth.
He's bringing the movie screen to real life.
He's saying that,
even though it's not real.
He's saying that, you know, it can't be, it's unrealistic. The utopia dream and aspect of this movie is ridiculous and unrealistic because in real life, African countries had conflict and they were fighting over things. And then he ironically says the closest thing to utopia is the United States, which is ironic because it's a country that has been able to flourish while having a multitude of internal conflict. So if the United States can flourish while having internal conflict, obviously there's other reasons why the United States is flourishing economically. That there's another reason, but for this point, I'm just going to say the United States flourished even while having a lot of conflict. And if he can say that's the closest thing to a utopia, even with that being the case, how can that not be the case for a country that's black or African or wherever, that people have black skin? Why wouldn't that be the same case for them? Can't they still have conflict and flourish? Can't they still have conflict and advance the society just like the United States did? And as far as the previews and the trailers go, isn't there an enemy in Wakanda?
There's an enemy.
Because
there's always an enemy. There's always an enemy in movies, especially action movies.
So it's
comic book movies.
It's not really this like perfectly happy-go-lucky utopia he's trying to make it. So not only is he straw-manning how black people think about this movie, he's straw-manning the movie in order to have a problem with it.
He's trying to bring the movie screen to real life when nobody else is doing that. Nobody is using this movie as an example of what is to happen or is, you know, or what should happen or anything like that. Black people, white people, every people that enjoys these type of movies are excited about this movie that's coming out. Now, specifically black people, if they want to see a predominantly black cast and be excited about that, I have no problem with that because I am too, because that doesn't happen often, especially not that is a major movie production. It just doesn't happen. So I'm glad about that. I'm glad that it's a Marvel movie. I'm glad it's Black Panther. I'm excited to see it. And that should be it. This dude is trying to poo-poo the idea of celebration, of excitement around this movie and trying to create that straw man that you're talking about, of where people are treating this like this is the greatest achievement or will be the greatest achievement in black history. It's not. It won't be. It won't be anywhere near that. What it will be is hopefully a good movie that has a predominantly black cast.
Like there was a rapper that a lot of white people were excited about. There's like when I was coming up, like in the area that I lived in, there wasn't a lot of white people who listened to rap. Almost some white kids that I grew up, they weren't allowed to listen to rap, or they just didn't listen to it. There was a white rapper by the name of Eminem that kind of made its way into the industry. And from white people's mouths themselves, some of my white male friends, they would tell me that, yeah, I got into rap when Eminem came into that industry. Now, why would that be? For some reason, they feel that he can relate to him. For some reason. And, you know, and they alluded to that. Like, I got into rap because of Eminem. Even when I was like in 5th grade, when your boy Vanilla Ice came out, I remember some of the dudes in my class, and I was like one of like 5 black people in my school. Muggs were holding up his tape, because back then it was cassette tapes. Vanilla Ice, best rapper ever, dude. And I was like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about, but okay, I see where you're coming from. There's no representation of white rappers, or a lot, in the game. So now you feel that, you know,
It's bringing you in.
It's bringing you in.
Yeah.
That was a reality. And I was like, I have no problem with that. I recognize that with Eminem too. I have no problem with that. I see that. So like when mugs talk about identity politics, but somehow only think it applies to black people, that shit trips me out. But I think, you know, Will and I would like to thank Ben Shapiro for keeping everything in perspective for us black people. You know what I'm saying? Because if it wasn't for him, we might be looking to apply for citizenship to Wakanda.
Yeah, I know, right?
You know what I'm saying? If
because
it wasn't,
by watching this movie, I might actually think that Wakanda's a real place. I might try to find a plane.
Might find a plane to go there.
A flight to Wakanda.
Thank him. We want to thank him for keeping our heads on straight. Because I wish
I want a utopia.
No, because see, I wish he was there. Like after Avatar, I wish he was there before and after Avatar, because I remember after the movie, you know, I was trying to hook my dreads up to billy goats and horses, thinking I was going to communicate with them. You know what I'm saying? But if Ben Shapiro was there, maybe he could have
be giants over here.
Yeah. Maybe he could have let us know the difference between reality and fiction. You know what I'm saying? And I wouldn't have done that. I didn't tell nobody. I didn't want to admit that I did that.
But see, you know what? This might be a easier, I guess, a easier outcome. Like this might be easily achieved because see, with Avatar, we were gonna have to go out into space, because that wasn't on planet Earth, that was in space. That's a little difficult. But here, this is just a land that's somewhere on the globe, like right here on Earth. So we might be able to find that.
I think the key element is that it's fantasy. And if you look at a lot of sci-fi, especially like sci-fi that's technology based in outer space, a lot of those movies completely eliminated black people. Like
there's no black people.
You didn't really see a lot of black people in any sci-fi, like hardly ever. Yeah. So there was always this like futuristic world, like, that did not have black people in it, and you cannot tell me that when someone goes into casting that is not like a purposeful thing, that they kind of eliminate certain type of people. This is their vision.
But this time, this cast and for this story, it's a predominantly black world, and this is the time that Ben Shapiro decides to get all upset about it. And tries to, you know, fan the flames and say that, hey, black people, you know, you're thinking that this is way too much. You're doing way too much here. It's not actually a big achievement, okay? It's not better than Martin Luther King, okay? It's not better than getting your civil rights. It's not better than your freedom from slavery, okay? Just a movie, okay? Just a movie. In a very inaccurate movie too. It couldn't happen.
Again, there's so much fantasy elements in it.
That's why
are you trying to like worry about?
That's why it's fantasy.
Disproving how unrealistic it is. It is unrealistic because it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be fiction. It is fiction. It's fantasy.
Maybe there are certain elements that he knows maybe ring a little true, and he's just feeling a little triggered by it.
Yeah, he does feel triggered. Well, like I said, a predominantly black class, a predominantly black cast, major movie production. People are getting excited about it. Might be rubbing him the wrong way. It just might depend. I mean, like, I guess judging his other viewpoints and other things that he has stated that we have known him to state. Yeah, this is probably.
And I've known him to blatantly lie too, so I just don't trust his character enough. I've seen him blatantly lie to his audience, so I just don't trust him. I don't trust his character.
So the number to call into the show is 646-876-9223. We do want to hear what you have to say. If you have anything to say about especially the tragedy that happened in Florida, your thoughts about the conversation that is going on right now, and of course always happens after every single mass shooting and people are killed. You know, what are your thoughts about what should happen? You know, what are your thoughts about the Second Amendment and what that means? You know, do you think that it means that any and every gun should be available to any citizen that wants it? Do you think certain firearms should be banned? Do you think there should be a limit on magazines? Do you think that guns should have, you know, fingerprint detection, you know, so that it can only be assigned to, you know, that owner and that owner only, because that is a technology that can be applied to firearms. It would cost money. It can happen though, but it would cost money. And I believe, you know, I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure the gun industry would shift that cost on to the owner. The consumer. So it's not, like I said, it's not something that can't happen. But yeah, just like I said, just what are your thoughts about what happened, and ideas about, you know, how we move forward, because inaction is getting us right back to where we start. We just keep rotating in this circle where our politicians only use the words thoughts and prayers and little else. This is not the time to debate these things.
Yeah, let's not stop politicizing the issue.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait a second. The issue of guns is inherently political in nature, considering that there are a number of our leaders that take money from the NRA. Yeah. So it is political already. You've made it political. Yeah. You've made the issue of guns political, or anything.
You know, I saw this one comparison. You remember when there was I believe there was a guy, the shoe bomber or something like that. You remember that? And then people at airports started to have to take off their shoes. So was that politicizing the event, or was that just trying to rectify a problem that may happen, like something that they may not have thought of before?
And also, like, even if it was, how inconvenient is it? It's no different than, let's say, if you go through a lot of streets in some certain neighborhoods, you don't see them a lot, like over here, like in like this part of town. But if you are like in certain areas, you see speed bumps, and not in neighborhoods now. Like before, I would usually only see speed bumps like in like store parking lots. But I see a lot school parking lots. But now, like I see them all over the place in neighborhoods. But why is that? Why is that? It's for safety.
It's for
safety.
Regulate.
Now, is it inconvenient?
It is inconvenient.
But how much of an inconvenient is it? Is it taking away something from me other than maybe speed for 5 seconds?
It's not so much of an inconvenience that I'm going to start a petition.
No.
It's not so much of an inconvenience to where I'm going to say, hey, Congressman, this can't happen. Nope, can't happen in my neighborhood. Sorry. No, it just means that I won't get to my destination
5 seconds quicker. Or depending on how many speed bumps, maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, maybe.
But really, like how inconveniencing is it?
It's not very inconvenient, no. It's not.
But that's for the greater good, right?
It's for the greater good.
And it's
to ensure safety.
And most likely, who is the focal point of that safety? Children.
Children, yeah. Maybe elderly people.
Maybe elderly people.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, man. But yeah, like I said, we want to hear what you say. You know, what are your ideas about it? I have ideas, of course, like I said, we've been sharing that. I don't disagree with you know, what Australia has done. I do believe that the waiting period here in America is ridiculous. We're not treating it like it's a serious problem. 3 days, they can't even. No, sorry, they're not. 3 business days. A lot of times they're not even able to perform the background check, but the retailer is able to sell that gun. So the waiting period needs to be longer. We've talked about, you know, training, dexterity, you know, eye test, just even, you know, some kind of police type training too, especially if you want to be a concealed carry permit user or holder, especially if you want to do that. The one thing that I don't believe anybody, the one thing that there should be unison support on, there shouldn't even be 1% of people that disagree, is on universal background checks.
And actually, the majority of Americans agree on universal background checks. You just
way more than the majority.
You just have a few voices out there that actually influence the notions of regular Americans. So when you hear regular Americans repeating certain talking points that
for no money,
the politicians who are getting paid to repeat, or being paid to say, then that's when we have the problem. That's where the snag,
right?
You know, that's where the snag is.
Like
you have regular citizens repeating talking points of politicians that get paid, like the whole you're punishing law-abiding citizens. Like, but
that's not just on guns too, because we've talked about that. We just talked about that, I believe, on the last show when we were talking about the budget, and we were talking about SNAP, and we were talking about how there's regular people out there that try to disparage and try to criticize regular people that are taking advantage of this benefit, of this entitlement that is being paid into. That's why it's an entitlement. Like people are paying into it, but like for some reason, certain people believe that the benefit should not be there, even though we are all paying for it. Like, it makes no sense. But again, these people who are not being paid by the government are doing the government's work for them and trying to cast a negative shadow on these people that take advantage of the program, and not take advantage, but use the system that's in place that's being paid into.
And most of the opinions are based on nothing. It's based on distortion or misrepresentation of how people use these programs or the amount of fraud that actually exists. So most people have very strong opinions about it without knowing anything about it. The same thing that remember when Jimmy Kimmel brought that family of dreamers.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much had them talking with like Trump supporters. Dog, it was, I mean, I knew it was going to be like kind of sad, but it started becoming like despicable, man. After a while, like you had all these people making claims and talking about things and having opinions, and they didn't even know how the program worked. They didn't even know how it worked.
A lot of people don't know, man. A lot of people don't know. Just like the if we're talking about guns, if we're talking about Australia, again, people always bring up Australia, and they're just parroting information that has not been confirmed by anybody. It's just that people that don't want anything to happen on guns say Australia, Australia, Australia without having any facts whatsoever. If they actually did the research, if they actually looked up the numbers, then that would completely destroy their argument, and they would have to try to, go to somewhere else. But they don't do that. All they need is a talking point without any evidence. That's all they need. And then all they do is actually say, like, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. Oh, you're just a sheeple. You're part of the sheeple. You don't know any better. You're uninformed. You're misinformed. And that's where the debate dies.
I've seen this point made before. I see what point Vicky Online 9.8U, the bot, is trying to make. We joke about that. But, you could say that, well, the problem is with the child. And if they didn't want to use a gun, that they would strangle somebody, what you say? Or she would stab somebody.
Stab somebody or strangle somebody.
True. Like, we're not saying that's not the case. Nobody's making that argument.
Nobody's going to eradicate evil.
Nobody is saying that because he didn't have a gun, it automatically means he won't try to do something. But you don't, like, allow access to certain devices that can do more damage when we can. That doesn't mean we've solved the problem. No one's saying that solves the problems of our society's dysfunctions, but you don't make it easier for a dysfunctional society to gain weapons that can harm people at a high rate.
Yeah,
the problem is with the child, but guess what? Ain't nobody dealing with that too. Actually, the problem is not with the child. The problem is the environment the child was nurtured in, and that's this dysfunctional society. So if somebody says we're paying attention to the child, I think that's even the wrong direction to go. Because
the question to Vicky is that, would you rather go up against a knife or a gun? Especially if the gun is able to shoot a rapid amount of fire and able to, put up another magazine in it that has, I don't know, how many, what's the capacity? 20, 30, 40 rounds? Would you rather go up against a knife? Because I would rather go up against anybody wielding a knife.
Yeah.
Because we would, especially if there's a school full of us, maybe somebody gets taken out. Maybe 2 people get taken out. But if they have a knife, are they going to take out 17 people? It's unlikely.
Yeah, most mugs are not just like, he might get 1 or 2 people. But if somebody is saying that this dude has a knife, I guarantee you most people would have the gumption to like kick him in the throat or tackle him.
Could they throw something at him too?
Yeah.
Could they throw a chair at him? But if he has a bullet, he could just shoot you and then game over.
Yeah, you can't come near him.
That's not that. See, that you can't say that. You know, that's just
Whoa,
that's just not a that's just not a that's just hey, hold on, man, dog.
My bad,
that's just not a sound argument to make. You can't compare a knife to a gun. A gun is always going to create way more havoc. It's going to create way more chaos than a knife will. Unless you got a gun that shoots out knives. Sorry, it's not a comparison.
Yeah, they're already kind of going at it right now in the chat. But yeah, Vicky says the knife is no less cruel or deadly? ? Oh, obviously the knife is less deadly. Now that doesn't mean the knife can't cause death. That's not the argument. But you cannot argue
on a mass scale.
On a mass scale, there's no argument that it's less deadly. Right. And this has nothing to do with like the mentality of the person. Now you're getting back into the mentality of the person because you're saying it's less. Is it less cruel? This has nothing to do with, like, first of all, violence and murder is just cruel. There's no gradations of it. If I want to shoot you or stab you or whatever, that's just cruel, period. Where this is not a conversation about the level of cruelty involved. This is about, like, kind of to mitigate, I guess, the casualties in certain situations. You just can't deny that casualties will be mitigated if we even enact the most simplest, like, legislation, the simplest basic legislation.
I've seen reports, I've seen studies based on Australia now that they have implemented that law where they, you know, outlawed certain weapons. And every study that I have seen, they're not making the case that that law is the reason why crime has gone down, or even why crime concerning guns has gone down. They don't even go that far, but they can't they can't, like, I guess, ignore it either. So they're saying that, yeah, crime has gone down. We're not going to make the case that the law is responsible for it, but it's there. So, I mean, you can't ignore it as well. I will make the case. Like, I'll go ahead and make the case for him. I believe the law is responsible for homicides going down because it shows in the numbers. If you don't have access to certain type of weapons that can absolutely tear up schools and malls and, you know, movie theaters, just any area with a large amount of people, if you don't have access to those weapons, then the casualties, like you just said, are going to be mitigated. You're not going to be able to cause that much harm. It's not going to be that much chaos. It's not going to be that much carnage. So there is a reason to go in that direction. There is no good reason for somebody that says that they want to protect their family to have an AR-15. I'm sorry, there just isn't. I can protect my family with a damn beanbag gun. You know, there's lots of things you can protect your family with. If you want a real gun, you can have a real gun too. If you want a shotgun, you can have a shotgun. To say that you need an AR-15, you're being very disingenuous. That's what I believe, at least. It's not used for hunting. There is no other purpose for it than for killing.
Okay, I really want maybe Vicky to maybe elaborate as far as maybe some solutions, since we obviously can't stop killing, and that's not the conversation. Now, again, the conversation is going to...
This isn't a zero-sum game.
It's not a zero-sum game, so it's like, because she's saying, like, if they don't have a gun, they will go to something else. So what? That's what we want. We're not saying that it won't happen. Like, yeah, if the guns aren't available, yes, they'll probably go to something else, but they will not go to something else that's going to cause as much damage.
But maybe she wasn't here. Maybe she wasn't here for the whole Australia numbers argument. Maybe she wasn't here.
Oh,
because if you're saying, if you know, commenter Vicky, if you're saying that if you don't have a certain type of weapon, you're just going to go to something else. That's what a lot of people say. And that's why people go to Australia and say that certain type of weapons were banned. So obviously, because of that, stabbings were, you know, the amount of stabbings were increased. Homicides as a result of stabbings had to be increased because of that. That didn't happen. If you look at the numbers, and we showed the numbers earlier on the show, the numbers went down. All numbers went down. Shooting deaths went down. Beating deaths went down. Knifings went down. Everything went down. Now, can you say that that's all related to the law that was passed? No, you can't, because that only referenced guns. So that that can't be about stabbings, and that can't be about beatings. That can't be. But if these certain type of evil people, you say that you can't root out the evil in these people. If they weren't able to get their access on these killing machines anymore, they had to get something else. Then why weren't why weren't knife attacks increased? It doesn't make any sense.
And if you're going to bring an automobile into the mix, an automobile is a little bit more harder to wheel than, I mean, you can crash into a crowd of people.
You can,
but you just can't say, we're gonna go. Like if you're just mad in the moment, right? Even if you're just mad in the moment and you're just angry, I'm gonna go run and get my car. You don't really hear that. A gun is a little bit easier to deal with as far as like conflict. You just can't just grab a car and I'm gonna just go hit these people or this person.
Right.
Mugs will probably be quick enough to get out of the way.
Yeah.
She makes a good point. Vicky makes a good point. It says the social structure must be repaired, but I would end it right there. She says the social structure must be repaired first. I would end it at the social structure must be repaired. I think, because I guarantee you when the Civil Rights Act was passed, the social structure was not repaired. You have to, I wouldn't say fake it till you make it, but you have to do things to maybe force people into progressing in society. You can't just say, well, we need to just deal with the social issues first. Sometimes we have to kind of enact things to get us to a position, because if we would actually do that, nothing would get done. Because I'm pretty sure the social structure was not repaired, after the Civil Rights Act was passed, or after black people gained the right to vote, or after women gained the right to vote. And the social structure is still not repaired now. You know what I'm saying? So we can't just wait to do things and wait to enact legislation when everybody's mind is right. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's mind is never always going to be right. We're never going to live in society where everyone has the ideal mindset. You know what I'm saying? That benefits everybody. Everybody has an ideal mindset that sees people in a certain way. Everybody has the ideal mindset to not cause harm to one another. There's always going to be those people that exist. There's not going to be this kind of like utopia of human traits to exist in. So we do have to do things to combat that. You can't say, well, we can't do laws because we got to correct this individual's character trait first. You can't do that. I just don't think that's logical.
June said make lobbying illegal. And I mean, look, I think that's something that a lot of people support because there's way too much money in politics. Could you just root out lobbying altogether? I don't know, but I know we do need to do something about politics, or not about politics, but we do need to do something about the extreme amount of money that is in politics. These super PACs, Citizens United, corporations writing bills. It goes way further than even just the lobbying. But that is one supreme way where these corporations are able to put money in these politicians' pockets. And of course, no matter what the politicians comes into office, believe in, if the money is there for them, and if that's a way to keep them in office, then, they're going to do what they're being told to do. And we know that because of the decisions that they make and the decisions that they don't make. If they're actually supposed to be a public servant and actually represent the people, when the people say, this is what we want, and not to say that we're always right, not to say that, just because there's a majority of us that believe a certain way, that doesn't mean that, something should be done. But when it's an issue like universal background checks that seemingly most all people agree on, and for the language everybody agrees on, because everybody agrees that certain people should not have access to a gun, and everybody agrees that criminals shouldn't have access to a gun, but a criminal is able to buy a gun because they don't have to go through a background check. Now, if that doesn't concern you, then you don't actually care about life. You don't actually care about humanity. All you're interested in is protecting this so-called slippery slope, which doesn't exist.
Because if that's the case, then we shouldn't ever, you know, seek to change anything. We shouldn't ever seek.
Because any change will lead to a slippery slope.
Yeah, because we shouldn't ever seek to change anything through the enacting of laws, because, you know, that would be a slippery slope to X or Y or Z.
Automatic weapons were outlawed. Where was the slippery slope? What did it lead to?
So now
that was what, in the 80s or something, or like when did they? I think that was in the 80s.
Yeah,
that
right? Was like during was that during Reagan?
I believe it was.
I think that was during Reagan.
So again, it didn't lead to anything. It didn't even lead to universal background checks. Where is this supposed slippery slope that everybody is so worried about? Again, the Second Amendment, you may interpret that to say that, yes, you have a right to bear arms. Cool. I got no problem with you. I don't got to like guns for you to want to bear arms. That's cool. I have no problem with that. But that doesn't give you the right to own and possess every single firearm that is out there, that is made. It just doesn't. No right. And I think I was making this point to some individual on social media too. There is no right that is absolute. There is absolutely no right in the world that is absolute. The First Amendment is not absolute. The Second Amendment is not absolute. There is no right that is absolute, because your right will never or should never get in the way of somebody else's right to life, safety, anything like that.
See, now Vicky is getting somewhere. She's talking about a society that rewards violence. You know what I'm saying? Like, she does talk about violence-based games. I don't think that causes anything, but I don't think that's the cause. I just think that's a symptom of us living in a society that glorifies violence. So yes, that's kind of the social structure she's talking about. Again, and I do think that's kind of a valid approach to it. We do have to kind of reform the social structure, but again, that doesn't mean you don't enact legislation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you are making a great point, Vicky, about the social structure, but the social structure is kind of based on the roots of this country, and I don't know how you're going to uproot that, because it's kind of the roots of this country and its establishment is based on violence. How it is able to progress and become a highly advanced society is based on violence, and not just necessarily physical violence, but, you know, like as far as physical suppression, like in the forms of like police brutality or like the Indian Removal Act or lynching period, anything like that. But economic violence, that's violence too. So this country is kind of, foundation is based off of violence. So I don't know what kind of social structure reform is going to take place in this country where the people in this country kind of cherish a country's history, cherish this country's history and revere it, even though we have a history of violence. So it's going to constantly be a part of our lives every day and constantly rear its ugly head, maybe in the form of school shootings or mass shootings or wherever. So I just don't understand how a change like that, a societal kind of reframing, can take place in this country when majority of people in this country don't acknowledge the history of violence. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of people are talking correctly about what the Second Amendment was put in place for, and, you know, not ignoring that significant part of it about the well-regulated militia. Like, we know that, you know, people that are actually objective, we know that. Now, in this country, that first little bit of that Second Amendment, oh, that's thrown out. I don't think there's anything that's going to be done about that, because one, there are way too many guns in this country, as you know, already here. Most of them are not going away. Now, can something happen like what happened in Australia? Can certain weapons be banned? Yeah, I believe that they can. Now, of course, that would take an act of Congress, and of course, that would take an act of Congress that goes against the NRA. Now, can that happen? That's a tall order. And again, something would have to be done to ensure that that can actually happen. And, you know, one of those things we would have to do something about money in politics, because they're not going to make that decision without it. So we are a long way off of any real solutions happening. I don't know. I mean, like, without something like that being done, how do you actually prevent these things from happening in schools and movie places and shopping malls and hotels? Like, how do you actually prevent those things from happening?
And how do you actually like convince people that their whole framing of the Second Amendment is pretty much based on kind of a distortion of what the forefathers thought about themselves and the people, and
you can't,
and who they considered the people. So it's like, yeah, they wrote those like, do you really think those men, when they were talking about the will of the people and they were talking about fighting off governments, were talking about themselves and the government they were trying to form? If you really believe that, then
we're gonna give you a way to come at us.
Yeah, I got a bridge that crosses the Atlantic Ocean.
See that
from you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? I got a bridge that crosses the Atlantic Ocean that I want to sell you. If you really think that these men that essentially wiped people off of their land and owned slaves were trying to provide an avenue for you to fight them off, then you're foolish. And so,
but see, that's never gonna. I'm like. That's never gonna happen. Like, people are never gonna get the way they view the Second Amendment. That's never gonna change. But what could change is regulating the Second Amendment, like further regulating the Second Amendment. That is what can change, because there's nothing in the Second Amendment that says that there is no regulation that can take place. It's already regulated. Like, people may not want to understand that, but the Second Amendment has always been not always been regulated. But it's currently regulated because, one, you can't have a tank, you can't have a rocket launcher, you can't have an automatic weapon. It's already regulated. So the slippery slope, I guess, is already happening. But these clowns are failing to see that. Like I said, something absolutely needs to change, and the only way that it is going to change is through Congress. Now, are we going to mandate that they make that change? Because we know what they're interested in. They're interested in that bottom line. They're interested in, how much money they're going to be making. We know that. They're also interested in re-election. This isn't some type of public service job. It is a job that they want to keep. There are no term limits. They want to stay in office as long as they can, because this is a very cushy type job for them. And it provides them with several benefits. So they want to stay there as long as possible to keep reaping those benefits. So how do we stop that? We stop voting them in. I mean, that's really the avenue that we have here. We have to get serious about who we're sending to Congress, who we're sending to the Senate, what president we're picking. If they have these ideals, if they believe in doing absolutely nothing about curbing gun violence, then why are we choosing them on the ballot? If they can't even get behind universal background checks, why are we choosing them on the ballot? And I know that, I know that most progressives, even probably most liberals, believe that same way, that like they believe in universal background checks and some measure of gun control or whatever. But even Republicans, why are you backing these individuals that want to do nothing about the carnage that your kids may have to face?
Warren Fry mentioned something that I think we'll get to on the after show on Facebook, and he talked about Booker's not taking PAC money declaration. I think didn't Kristen Gillibrand make that same declaration that they won't? She's against taking PAC money, and she's against Democrats doing it too, or something. So I both think it was Booker and Gillibrand. So,
I just saw that Gillibrand said that Hillary Clinton is still her
most admired politician.
Yeah,
I saw
like
that
her idol or whatever.
Those two.
Yeah.
Warren, we'll give you. We'll talk about that on the after show.
Yeah. But all right, we will be getting out of here. Like I said, we went a long time on the tragedy, of course, because of what it continues to mean in this country.
And as far as what it continues to cause people to ignore.
And how our politicians just throw thoughts and prayers around like that's actually going to do something, like that's going to actually curb some violence. It's a bad situation. Man, how did Australia do it, man? They must not have had a political model like we have. Could not.
Political model, or maybe like maybe a populace that kind of decided amongst themselves that this is what we need to do and that's what we want to do. And of course,
they can't have an NRA like that. They can't have politicians that are taking money from the NRA and are choosing to do nothing. Either that, or like you said, the people made it happen. But if the people actually did make it happen, the politicians would have had to know that, like, hey, you know, we can't support y'all.
Yeah, no, we're not going to support this initiative. Like, because mugs don't just give up their gravy train just like that. They don't just give it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, we got a long way to go, but appreciate everybody that rode along with us tonight. Again, loss of life is always tragic, and like this, man, mostly kids, you know, not being able to even reach adulthood. It's disgusting, man. It's disgusting that our supposed leaders aren't interested in actually doing anything about it either. But anyway, we hope that you know, you enjoyed the show a little bit, maybe had a few laughs, especially at those two would-be criminals. That was
we had to put something in there that was kind of
a little light, you know, lighten the situation a little bit. That made me laugh earlier today. So thank you for being here and commenting. Got off to a slow start, man. Nobody was commenting right at first, but I guess as the subject matter, as we were getting into the subject matter, a lot of people had things to say. So thank you for being here, and we'll be back Tuesday, 7 p.m.
It seems so far away.
It does. Tuesday. It's 5 days. I'm sure this is still going to be
a topic of conversation.
It's still going to be a topic 5 days from now.
And then, of course, you're going to have...
How thick will it be, though? You know?
Yeah. How thick will it be?
I'm saying, like, what kind of emphasis will be at it? Will it be dying down?
Oh,
you know?
It'll be dying down.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I mean, it's always different depending on how much, you know, details to, I guess, the story there are. Mm-hmm. So I maybe predict that crickets will be chirping in about a week and a half.
About a week and a half?
Yeah, crickets will be chirping because, you know, obviously... Trump is going to be doing something stupid. Congress is going to be doing something stupid. I
mean, because you know, when Vegas happened, we talked about it a number of times. We talked about the bump stocks.
Because we always reference that.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was all the conspiracy theories were so thick and being promoted by a lot of very popular commentators, we felt the need to kind of take that head on.
True. That's true.
Because there was some people that watched our show that were bringing some of those theories to the chat and to our show. So now we feel like as people who watch, since there are people who watch our show, it's like, if we're going to deal with these people directly, they kind of represent a segment of people. So if they're saying this stuff in the chat, then hey, we gotta deal with it.
And of course, there were the videos that were popping up to, you know, those flashing lights that were not gunfire, that were getting millions of hits on the video.
10 million hits.
I mean, so there's no doubt that we had to cover it. But yeah, this, I'm sure there will be more information that comes out between now and Tuesday. He did have the the suspected gunman. He did have an arraignment today. I saw that arraignment, and he's going to be held without bond, of course. And I did see that he admitted to it too. I guess the local police or maybe the FBI put out that statement that he did admit to the shooting. His lawyer was saying that he's a broken up man, and she was doing her lawyer thing. I'm not gonna I guess chastise her for that. She was saying that he doesn't have the I guess he's a 19-year-old kid, and he doesn't have the ability to temper his actions. I guess he doesn't have those limits yet, and whatever. But like I said, she's his lawyer and she's doing his thing. But she said that he's remorseful and that, you know, he's a broken up man. He's he's a depressed guy, and this and that. But you know, I saw that I saw an interview with Pam Bondi, who is the Florida's Attorney General, and she was intimating that this is something that they may look at with the death penalty in Florida. So, you know, like I said, I'm sure there'll be more things that come out. The whole reference to the white supremacist organization or group that he was a part of, maybe that will be confirmed by that point. You know, maybe we can have that confirmation, because right now it's just, I believe it's the leader's word that said that he was part of this organization.
But I mean, the signs are already there. Even if he wasn't, he kind of had that those same political leanings anyway. So.
Right. So again, when's it gonna be the next time? You know, you might as well just count down the days. You know, will anything happen by the next time that this happens? You know, I don't think, of course it won't. I think just in 2018 alone, there have been 18 school shootings already. Now, all of them aren't the same. All of them aren't mass shootings. All of them, somebody didn't die. But there was an incident in 18 different cases where there was a shooting at a school involving a gun. I believe there were 2 cases where it was a suicide, and I believe there were 7 or 8 other cases where somebody actually got shot. So, again, if you're, I mean, like, I can understand that people want to cling to their guns, and, you know, they feel like that Second Amendment affords them the right to bear arms, and, you know, but if you're okay with those type of statistics, if you're okay with that type of carnage, just a month and a half into the new year, like, how do you care about life at that point? You can't. You absolutely can't. Got anything else, man?
Nah, man. I think this, even though we didn't cover as many topics, I think what we did cover elicited a lot of responses in the chat, and it kind of sparked a lot of conversation. And I think a lot of it was productive. Obviously, there's going to be people that have differing opinions, but I like what I saw. Even if I didn't quite disagree with everything, I like what I saw in the chat. But yeah, like I said, it pretty much the people that were here towards the beginning stayed all the way through. So,
but yeah, Warren, Marsha, June, Aaron, Miss Tree. Who else in here?
Oh yeah. Who was? I think that was. Go back up. Dang, I can't even. I don't think he's commented in a while. I think it was Jonathan. Said something about we should all outlaw all guns and carry around medieval swords. I was like, yeah. Honestly, man, that junk scares me more than the gun. Like, if I see somebody with a sword, I'm like, yo,
true
that person is on some different. Even though it's not as dangerous because I can run away from it if I'm faster.
Still,
like the sight of it.
I'm
like, yo,
I'm crossing the street.
That Joker is on something else, dude.
You got a sword?
That Joker's on something else.
Like, there's a movie over here now.
Yeah.
No. And special shout out to Kath Casey too, man. I don't know that I've seen Kath Casey, you know, in the comments, you know, while we are live, but I know she has been a loyal supporter going way back to early 2016. So appreciate you being here, Kath. But we are going to get out of here, and like I said, we'll be back Tuesday 7 p.m. and I'm sure we'll have some stories to cover. So thank you all for being here with us, and have a good night and a good weekend.